The tale begins in a lively kitchen bustling with activity. A knife rhythmically slices through ingredients on the cutting board. Steam rises from a pan as pasta is tossed with expert flair. Our hero showcases his creation, ready to be served. He shares that he hails from a small town where his family owns a diner. Cooking has been his true love since he was a child. He envisioned taking over the family diner after finishing high school. His father, stoic as ever, set a simple task: learn to cook for himself. However, his initial attempts resembled a culinary disaster. Too shy to seek help, he resolved to teach himself. His first real achievements were humble bento boxes, filled with pride. Before long, his abilities flourished into a variety of culinary delights. By the time he reached high school, he was determined to work alongside his father. Yet his father offered no warm embrace, only another test. He was regarded not as a son, but as the least experienced apprentice. His days turned into a relentless grind of preparation from dawn until late night. Mountains of dirty dishes became his new, less glamorous reality. On graduation day, his father presented not a job, but an ultimatum. He was instructed to leave home and train under a contact in Tokyo. Confused yet compliant, he was sent off to carve his own destiny. His father had already completed the paperwork, leaving no chance to refuse. He arrived at a modest apartment, his new residence in the vast city. Thus, at 18, his intense training in Tokyo commenced. His days became an unending cycle of work from before dawn until late night. Yet, he felt no burden. His love for cooking overshadowed everything. After a year, his mentor announced he had nothing more to teach the gifted chef. At 20, he was finally summoned back home to join his father's restaurant. He stood on the platform, his long-awaited return just a train ride away. He stepped onto the train, a move that should have taken him home, but a sudden heavy force halted him in his tracks. That single step was meant to board the bullet train home. Instead of solid ground, his eyes widened in sheer disbelief. The world beneath him simply vanished. He fell into an endless, terrifying void, utterly powerless. As he descended, his consciousness mercifully slipped into darkness. He awoke in an unfamiliar bed, his mind racing to catch up. A stranger with blonde hair and a worried look gazes down at him. Our hero can only stare back, completely baffled by the armored figure. His first reaction isn't fear, but a critique of the man's unusual attire. He wonders if he stumbled into a historical reenactment or cosplay event. The armored man explains he found our hero collapsed in his camp. Our protagonist can't remember how he ended up here. The terms camp and collapsed echo in his mind, making no sense. His thoughts are a chaotic jumble, unable to make sense of it all. Finally managing to sit up, he asks the crucial question, "Where am I?" The man responds that they are in the Rimble hillside area. The name means nothing to him, a foreign sound in an unfamiliar land. Searching for a point of reference, he inquires about the prefecture. The armored man is utterly confused, having never heard of a prefecture. The realization hits him, this isn't just a different place, it's an entirely different world. A new voice interrupts, calling out for the captain. The tent flap swings open, revealing a squad of armored fighters. Nervously, our protagonist wonders if this is his welcoming committee. A varied group stands before him, each one more intimidating than the last. His thoughts race, landing on the idea of a cosplay group or idol gathering. Yet the imposing figure in the horned helmet seems far too serious. The enormous battle axe he wields looks frighteningly real. Reality crashes down on him. That weapon is genuine, and this isn't a show. The captain cuts through his fear, asking the bewildered boy for his name. He finally introduces himself, giving our hero a name, Azuma Shuri. The captain identifies himself as Gangrave, head of this mercenary group. The term mercenary group echoes in Azuma's mind, deepening his confusion. Still convinced this is a performance, he asks if that's their band name. One of the women leans in, suggesting to the captain that Azuma might be concussed. Gangrave sizes him up, realizing he needs to clarify things for the bewildered boy. He recounts how Azuma appeared in their camp before collapsing. He inquires if Azuma remembers anything about fainting right in front of them. But Azuma's memory is a blank canvas. He only recalls waking up in the tent. The rest of the squad listens intently, their faces a mix of curiosity and doubt. His bizarre tale fails to impress the stoic members of the group. Gangrave gets straight to the point, asking where Azuma hails from. Azuma can only provide a simple, perplexing reply. He's from Japan. The captain has never heard of a place called Nihon. Azuma tries to clarify, explaining that Japan is an island nation. One of the warriors speculates if he comes from some far-off, unknown isle. Gang Rave, clearly developing a headache, decides to skip the geography lesson. The truth finally dawns on Azuma. This isn't his world. Panic grips him as he realizes he's on a continent he's never known. The overwhelming shock sends his thoughts spiraling into chaos. Gang Rave suggests he take a moment to rest, recalling how disheveled he was upon arrival. One of the men cheerfully mentions he was the one who cleaned Azuma up. Gang Rave looks like he's already regretting this entire exchange. He gets to the point. As mercenaries, they're currently embroiled in a war. The rest of the squad regards him with suspicion, a silent wall of judgment. Azuma realizes that if what they're saying is accurate, he's in deep trouble. The terrifying thought finally clicks. They suspect he's a spy. A massive battle axe hovers near his face, a sharp and shiny rebuttal. But just as panic threatens to engulf him, the captain steps in. Gang Rave reasons that if Azuma were local, he'd be injured from the journey. He lays down his terms. Azuma must answer every question truthfully. Gang Rave admits he doesn't genuinely believe Azuma is a spy. However, if Azuma cooperates, he promises to ensure his safety. With no other options, Azuma vows to tell the whole truth. He reiterates his story. He's Azuma Shuri, 20 years old from Hiroshima. The captain remains unconvinced, having never heard of Hiroshima or Nihon. He also points out that Azuma looks more like a teenager, a comment he doesn't appreciate. Azuma desperately insists he's being truthful, even if he can't explain it. Gang Rave ponders this, asking if Azuma is merely a foreigner. The term lingers, a label that feels both accurate and wholly insufficient. The rest of the squad observes silently, their judgment filling the tent. The squad's women observe, their faces a mix of intrigue and skepticism. Azuma concedes that he can't make sense of it either, so he can't expect their trust. He pleads, voice trembling with urgency, insisting he's telling the truth. The captain listens closely, his face unreadable as he considers the boy's claims. Azuma steels himself, prepared to share everything he knows, no matter how absurd it sounds. But Gang Rave raises a hand, reassuring him this isn't meant to intimidate. He exhales, recognizing that Azuma's recollections are jumbled and the situation is complex. Timidly, Azuma poses the question that's been nagging at him. What will become of him? Gang Rave bluntly states they can't afford to care for someone who can't pull their weight. Great news for our boy. Those words hit hard, leaving Azuma in shock and fear. In desperation, Azuma asks if he can work to earn his keep. Gang Rave ponders it, admitting that if Azuma can contribute, they might allow him to stay. The commander outlines the grim alternative, a bit of food before being dropped off at the nearest village. Seeing their serious faces, Azuma realizes this isn't a bluff, they're genuinely at war. Gang Rave's steady gaze confirms the deadly truth of their predicament. Panic sets in as Azuma grasps that no village would take in a stranger during conflict. He quickly realizes that sticking with these mercenaries is his best shot at survival. Taking a deep breath, he steels himself for his final appeal. He pleads for them to let him stay, promising to take on any job since he has nowhere else. Impressed by his calm determination, Gang Rave agrees, but with one catch. He'll be monitored. Azuma accepts his fate with composure, thinking a little oversight is a small price for survival. Gang Rave gets straight to the point, questioning what a scrawny kid like him can offer mercenaries. Suddenly, Azuma realizes exactly what he must do to survive in this new world. His first survival rule becomes clear: stay close to those wielding the big weapons. He recalls an old saying, on the battlefield, there are no rules, only survival. Leaving this group would mean death. His only choice is to find a role and become essential. But as he searches for a useful skill, he draws a blank. In desperation, he tries to remember how he faced impossible challenges before. A memory flashes, the familiar motions of a chef preparing a meal. And just like that, a brilliant life-saving idea strikes him. He blurts out his remaining skill, I want to cook. The commander freezes, eyes wide in disbelief. Gang Rave leans in, demanding to know what he just heard. Azuma nervously repeats his offer, hoping he hasn't made a huge mistake. You can actually cook? Gang Rave asks, to which Azuma confirms he's had years of training. The hardened mercenary commander suddenly bursts into unrestrained joy. Azuma is utterly confused by this exaggerated display of happiness. He glances around, noticing the entire crew is practically buzzing with excitement. Gang Rave grins, declaring he has the perfect role for him, official camp cook. Our hero is left speechless, his one skill unexpectedly becoming his lifeline. Azuma worries that the current cook might not take kindly to being replaced so abruptly. Gang Rave just sighs, clearly worn out by the thought of their food situation. Deciding actions speak louder than words, the commander tells him to come and see. He guides Azuma out of the tent and into the chaotic heart of a sprawling military camp. The sheer scale of the operation hits Azuma like a freight train. This is a real army. He observes soldiers gambling and sharpening weapons, the harsh reality of mercenary life settling in. Gazing over the sea of tents, he finally accepts the impossible. He's truly in another world. The diverse, rugged faces of the mercenaries confirm this is no cosplay event. He even notices their unusual hair colors, another sign that he's not in Japan anymore. Finally, Gang Rave shows him the kitchen, a sad campfire with a single forlorn pot. Azuma's thoughts race to the one place he truly belongs, the kitchen. Gang Rave clarifies that their mercenary group lacks a dedicated cook. Azuma is taken aback, wondering how a whole battalion survives without a chef. The captain concedes it was a mistake. No rational cook would join them in battle. Yet Azuma sees this as his sole opportunity to demonstrate his value to them. Gang Rave reveals they've been alternating cooking duties with barely edible results. The entire unit craves a proper meal to lift their spirits after the conflict. Thus, Gang Rave presents him with a challenge, a culinary trial by fire. If Azuma can whip up a meal that wows him, he'll be hired immediately. A glimmer of determination lights up Azuma's eyes. He accepts the challenge instantly. Azuma inspects the supply tent, eager to see what he can work with. He assesses the tools and the limited ingredients at his disposal. The pantry holds basic root vegetables and a few essential items. There's also milk, cheese, and some spices to complete the selection. Azuma turns to the captain, inquiring if this scant selection is truly all they possess. Gang Rave explains that after 3 months of fighting, their supplies are critically low. In fact, the mercenary assigned to cook today has already given up in despair. Now it's Azuma's moment to showcase what he can create with their dwindling resources. The weight of this task bears down on him. This is more than just preparing a meal. With their preserved foods and bread completely gone, failure isn't an option. Gang Rave leans closer, curious about the culinary creation Azuma has in mind. Azuma ponders the meager ingredients laid out before him. A confident grin spreads across his face as he settles on making a cream stew, but the captain stares back, utterly confused by the dish's name. Azuma turns to Gang Rave, trying to grasp his bewilderment. He asks if the captain has genuinely never heard of cream stew. He clarifies that it's a simple stew made with milk, a staple back home. It appears this world lacks not only supplies, but also basic comfort food. This thought triggers a new realization. How can they even communicate? The ingredients share the same names, a bizarre yet convenient detail in this strange world. The language barrier is just another puzzle he'll need to figure out later. For now, he grabs a knife, ready to let his cooking speak for itself. The tools are rustic and unfamiliar, but he believes he can make them work. Tying on a makeshift apron, he dives into the task, eager to prove himself. Though he's missing key ingredients, Azuma is determined to craft a masterpiece. The preparation begins, his knife moving with a skill that feels out of place here. He starts with sautéed onions, harnessing their natural sweetness for flavor. Once the onions are ready, he adds the other vegetables in a careful sequence. Gang Rave questions his approach, as cooking in order seems advanced here. Azuma explains that the order is crucial for properly blending the flavors. Next, he incorporates flour into the pot, laying the groundwork for the sauce. Slowly, he stirs in the milk, transforming the mixture into a rich, creamy base. Gang Rave watches in alarm, questioning why the soup appears so unnaturally white. Azuma calmly reassures him that a cream stew is meant to be white. The captain remains flustered, clearly unprepared for this pale dish. For the finishing touches, Azuma slices cheese directly into the pot to enhance the flavor. With a confident grin, he presents the completed dish, a steaming bowl of hearty stew. Yet Gang Rave is still fixated on the color, noting it's whiter than any soup he's encountered. Azuma, his patience wearing thin, has to clarify for the third time that it's a cream stew. The captain finally concedes he doesn't even know what cream is, let alone a stew made from it. Azuma urges him to quit whining and just eat, like a parent with a fussy child. The first spoonful slams into Gang Rave's taste buds like a thunderclap. The whole mercenary crew watches in stunned silence as their captain is fed. He chews deliberately, his mind struggling to grasp the astonishing flavor. With one careful swallow, the decision is made. The captain's eyes widen, sparkling with a culinary discovery he never imagined. Azuma can only observe, slightly shocked by the intensity of his reaction. Gangrave seizes the bowl, his face radiating pure, unfiltered awe. He begins shoveling the stew into his mouth. All pretense of composure vanished. The rest of the squad can only gawk, their jaws nearly hitting the ground. The horned warrior and his ally can only stare, their silence saying it all. Soon the entire camp is transfixed, watching their captain devour the peculiar white stew. The women in the squad observe, their skepticism fading into sheer amazement. The plain wooden bowl seems to glow, cradling a meal worthy of royalty. Even the most stoic members of the group can't mask their curiosity. Gangrave is enveloped in a state of pure culinary bliss, a joyful smile on his face. A crowd gathers, their faces a perfect tableau of collective disbelief. In what feels like an instant, the bowl is completely emptied. Azuma tentatively tries to catch the captain's eye, uncertain of the outcome. But Gangrave just thrusts the empty bowl forward, demanding another serving like a battering ram. Caught off guard, Azuma can only stammer an agreement to the captain's request. Gangrave gazes into the empty bowl, as if willing more stew to appear. He recalls his initial skepticism, staring at the bizarre, unnervingly pale dish. He remembers lifting the first spoonful, still uncertain about the dish's flavor. And the instant the strange taste first graced his lips, the entire squad is in shock, tasting the rich flavor just by observing. The bowl was left spotless, a testament to a meal that exceeded all expectations. Gangrave exhales a sigh of pure, unfiltered satisfaction. He turns back to Azuma, a broad grin on his face as he requests another serving. But he pauses, leaning in to remind Azuma that the test isn't over yet. Gangrave catches himself apologizing for his rather forceful request. He takes a sharp breath, regaining his composure after the culinary revelation. With a broad smile, he officially announces that Azuma has passed the test. He admits it's been far too long since he enjoyed a truly satisfying meal. Azuma lets out a soft sigh, feeling the weight of the world lift from his shoulders. The captain confesses he was doubtful about a meatless dish, but this was amazing. Azuma gently explains how important vegetables are for balanced nutrition, but Gangrave fixates on that last word, asking what nutrition even means. Azuma is stunned, struggling to believe the concept is entirely alien here. He explains simply that nutrition is the fuel the body requires to function well. Azuma can only stare, realizing he's stumbled into a world devoid of WebMD. Gangrave's eyes widen as he asks if Azuma is some sort of doctor. The rest of the squad observes the exchange, their expressions a mix of confusion and curiosity. The term doctor echoes in Azuma's mind, a title he certainly doesn't deserve. He quickly clarifies that he can't treat injuries, he just knows about healthy food. Gangrave ponders this, wondering if Azuma is a food doctor from a distant land. But he quickly dismisses the thought, concluding the boy belongs to no nation he recognizes. The captain suddenly calls out his name, snapping Azuma from his reverie. With a broad grin, Gangrave makes his official proposal. Azuma is to join them. He proclaims to the entire company that Azuma is now their official cook. The mercenary camp bursts into jubilant cheers for their newly appointed chef. Gangrave greets Azuma with a hearty handshake and a friendly grin. The focus shifts to a desolate battlefield, a harsh reminder of their grim reality. The harsh truth of this world unfolds. Armies clash over land. Knights on horseback charge forward, their battle cries resonating across the field. In Sabreu, relentless wars rage between competing nations. Behind the front lines, power-hungry lords scheme to dominate the territory. The battlefields resonate with the sounds of clashing metal, flames, and dark sorcery. In this realm, human life is cheap, easily discarded and forgotten. Only the allure of gold and glory is worth fighting for. In this era of unending conflict, mercenaries are a brutal yet necessary presence. We flash back to a savage street brawl, a fist landing with a sickening thud. A man is hurled away, a harsh lesson delivered with overwhelming force. A gang of thugs attempts to assert their dominance, but they've chosen the wrong fight. A much younger Gangrave stands firm, warning them never to return. He reveals that before becoming a captain, he led a street gang. Alongside 7 childhood friends, he was notorious for stirring up trouble. Even back then, Gangrave had a unique talent that distinguished him. His swordsmanship was a blur, a natural gift for combat. His foes could only watch in horror as his blade moved faster than the eye could see. In an instant, a knight is disarmed, his sword clattering to the ground. He stares in shock, questioning how a street kid could master knightly swordplay. Young Gangrave simply states he learned by observing. He had a rare gift, the ability to perfectly mimic anything he witnessed. As he matured, he recognized the limitations of his gang in a war-torn world. So, he and his 7 friends departed to establish their own mercenary group. Their rise was rapid, transforming their small band into an army of nearly 100. But with expansion came the heavy burden of logistics and costs. An army, he discovered, consumes gold faster than a dragon raises a village. In his initial plans, he completely missed one crucial resource. He underestimated the soul-crushing despair of truly awful food. The entire company endures a moment of shared culinary misery. After weeks of slop, the men would splurge their pay on the first decent tavern. This constant financial drain meant they could never upgrade their gear. He needed a chef capable of miracles on the battlefield, but such a person felt like a dream. Despite the immense challenges of running the company, Gang Rave was resolute in his quest for success. For him, this was more than just a job. It was his only means of survival. Gang Rave's ambitions extended beyond wealth. He aspired to create his own nation. He recalled his past as a war orphan, forced to navigate life alone. He understood that to alter his destiny, he would need to get his hands dirty. He pledged to forge a world where no child would endure his suffering. His strategy involved seizing riches from the corrupt to build a brighter future. To realize that dream, he cut down countless foes on the battlefield. He experienced the bitterness of defeat and the sting of humiliation more than once. Yet through it all, Gang Rave never faltered. He simply pressed on. After 8 long years, his company had expanded, but his ambitions outpaced it. He began to worry he had hit a wall, that his dream was slipping away. Just as despair threatened to engulf him, a peculiar boy appeared from nowhere. This was Azuma Shuri, the enigmatic young man destined to alter his fate. Thus, in a modest camp within the Renbel region, a new chapter commenced. Gang Rave contemplates his choices, a somber expression crossing his face as he ponders his next move. Inside the war tent, he confesses to his lieutenants that this was a significant error in judgment. One officer points out that they've been entrenched here for 3 months in a grueling war of attrition. Their troops are worn out, their resources are drained, and another defeat could spell doom for their company. In this open landscape, their tactical choices are severely restricted. A direct confrontation seems unavoidable. A scout's report confirms their darkest fears. The enemy is gearing up for a full-scale attack at dawn. His second-in-command suggests a complete withdrawal, convinced this battle is futile. She argues that persisting in the fight will only result in more unnecessary casualties. Even the Shrine Maiden Kaguya recognizes the peril of compelling their exhausted soldiers to continue. Gang Rave appears to concur, contemplating a tactical retreat to the next battlefield. Gang Rave glances at the quiet-horned warrior, inquiring if he has any thoughts to share. Orthros, the warrior in question, remains entirely mute, as is his usual manner. Gang Rave clarifies that Orthros has always been a man of action rather than words. He's the kind of person who would tackle any brutal task for his comrades. His silent gaze conveys everything. Retreating now would dishonor their fallen allies. Gang Rave acknowledges his friend's feelings, but the Shrine Maiden looks uneasy. Kaguya interjects, cautioning that if they remain, the entire company will be annihilated. She challenges Orthros, questioning if this is truly how he wishes to honor the deceased. She insists there's a thin line between pride and foolishness. As mercenaries, their employer won't stop them if they decide to pull back. Gang Rave turns to his second-in-command, Arlius, admitting her reasoning is valid. However, he counters that after such a prolonged conflict, their employer won't tolerate desertion. He shuts his eyes, contemplating the heavy repercussions of either decision. With a sudden spark in his eyes, he proclaims he will not back down from this battle. He explains that for a mercenary group, their reputation is their only asset. If tales of cowardice spread, their entire operation is doomed. His lieutenants listen in silence, the weight of his choice saturating the tent. Kaguya is the first to yield, accepting her captain's final order. Orthros stays silent, his unmoving helmet a testament to his unwavering support. Arlius voices the sentiment of the group, affirming that he is their leader and they will follow. Gang Rave receives their loyalty with a calm, contemplative expression. He decides they will devise their strategy after they've had a meal. Regrettably, tonight's meal resembles more of a punishment than actual food. The Shrine Maiden Kaguya apologizes profusely for her unit's culinary shortcomings. Gang Rave reassures her he's not blaming her, just the harsh reality they face. He runs a hand through his hair, the burden of leadership pressing heavily on him. The captain realizes that lacking a dedicated cook is a significant vulnerability. He never considered that an army's greatest weakness could lie within its own kitchen. For the soldiers, a decent meal is one of their few comforts, and this slop is demoralizing. He understands that if they could just eat well, they'd muster the strength to fight another day. He curses his own short-sightedness. Hiring a cook was an issue he never took seriously. A voice calls out to the captain, pulling him from his spiral of regret. He reminds them that for a mercenary company, their strength is their only currency. If tales of cowardice spread, their entire operation is doomed. His lieutenants listen in silence, the weight of his choice saturating the tent. Kaguya is the first to yield, accepting her captain's final order. Orthros stays silent, his unmoving helmet a testament to his unwavering support. Arlius voices the sentiment of the group, affirming that he is their leader and they will follow. Gang Rave receives their loyalty with a calm, contemplative expression. He decides they will devise their strategy after they've had a meal. He gazes at the bowl of slop, confirming his worst suspicions. It's completely inedible. Kaguya lowers her head, filled with shame, apologizing for her unit's cooking failures. Gang Rave quickly reassures her, insisting he doesn't hold her responsible. Frustration is evident as he runs a hand through his hair. The root of their dilemma hits him. They lack a proper cook. He never thought that the absence of a decent chef would be such a significant drawback. Outside, the soldiers appear utterly defeated. Their only solace on the battlefield is a bitter one. He understands that a good meal could reignite their fighting spirit. He curses himself for missing this detail, realizing it's too late to find a chef now. Just as he spirals into despair, a voice from outside the tent calls out his name. He looks up, his thoughts interrupted by the urgent summons. A young soldier bursts into the tent, frantically searching for Gang Rave. The captain is less than thrilled, questioning why this man is interrupting. Tag stutters, clearly intimidated by the senior officers. He quickly explains that there's something outside they all need to witness. The leadership team follows him out, hearing about a lost child discovered in the camp. Gang Rave feels annoyed, wondering why he was pulled from an important meeting for this. But Tag insists there's something very unusual about this particular case. Gang Rave looks ahead, noticing a small crowd of soldiers has already gathered. He scolds them, asking if they're just staring at some random child. Arlius, his second-in-command, admits she's intrigued by a lost child in a war zone. Kaguya, the Shrine Maiden, agrees this situation merits investigation. Another woman in the group chimes in, curious about anyone who'd wander into a war camp. Gang Rave sighs, realizing his entire leadership team has the attention span of a goldfish. He concedes with a sigh, deciding it's simpler to see what the fuss is about. He instructs the young soldier to lead him to this mysterious lost child. His expression hardens as he nears the tent, prepared for anything. Inside, Azuma lies completely unconscious, oblivious to the chaos he's caused. He resembles any other young man, a stark contrast to the hardened soldiers outside. Gang Rave looks down at the boy, realizing this situation is far more complex than he anticipated. Gang Rave's lieutenants gather outside the tent, their curiosity finally getting the better of them. Inside, some of the women find the situation more amusing than concerning. Kaguya cuts to the chase, asking the soldier where exactly the boy originated. But Tag hesitates, admitting that the truth might be a bit hard to digest. He explains that, according to a witness, Azuma simply appeared out of thin air. The entire leadership team can only stare back in stunned disbelief. Arlius wonders aloud if this could be the legendary magic of teleportation. But she quickly dismisses it, claiming it's an ancient art no one can wield anymore. Gang Rave ponders her words. If their magic expert is baffled, this is serious. Another officer agrees, admitting that this entire situation feels bizarrely out of place. Kaguya mentions that in her homeland, there are beings resembling humans closely. She explains that she's from the East, and this boy shares their unique features. But she struggles to convey how her people are fundamentally different. She finally describes them as being denser than ordinary humans, whatever that means. The strange description lingers in the air, deepening the mystery for Gang Rave. Arlius remains skeptical, questioning if he's just an ordinary villager. But another soldier points out his uncalloused hands and well-fed appearance. Kaguya speculates he might be a merchant's son, given his soft, pampered look. A red-haired warrior shoots that down, noting his clothes are far too peculiar for that. Arlius then proposes a final, more dramatic theory. Perhaps he's a royal offspring. Arlias dismisses the royalty theory, stating she's never heard of any divine lineage producing someone like him. Gang Rave concedes that none of their hypotheses align, leaving them without solutions. The more they observe, the more peculiar he appears. His physique shows no evidence of toil or battle. Yet above all, Gangrave points out, it's his attire that stands out the most. He simply wears a plain white shirt and blue trousers, which should be ordinary. However, Gangrave realizes the quality is beyond what their world can produce. The shirt lacks buttons or visible stitching, and the neck opening seems impossibly narrow. The fabric is flawlessly woven, showcasing a level of detail that seems almost divine. He ponders the material's nature, a textile more radiant and resilient than anything he's encountered. He understands that a single shirt like this could create immense wealth and transform the continent's textile market. Gangrave then gestures toward the trousers, asserting they possess the greatest worth. He observes the consistent blue dye and the impeccably functional pocket design. He concludes these garments are treasures, products of technology far beyond their era. One of the women agrees, stating the boy feels as if he hails from an entirely different realm. The term, another realm, resonates in Gangrave's thoughts, an utterly unbelievable notion. He glances down at the boy, realizing they've stumbled into a significant dilemma. While Azuma sleeps peacefully, Gangrave wonders if he's a spy, or merely a case of mistaken identity. A soldier remarks that although Azuma was in disarray upon arrival, his complexion has improved. Seeking another perspective, Gangrave turns to the quiet giant Orthros. Orthros, in his boundless wisdom, responds with profound and stoic silence. Arlias, the second in command, mentions he feels no malice or intent to kill from the boy. Gangrave admits his curiosity is piqued, especially by Azuma's unusual attire. The red-haired woman is equally perplexed, unable to recognize the fabric or stitching method. Another officer comments that if their resident inventor is stumped, this is a genuine enigma. However, Kaguya, the shrine maiden, seems to have a different hypothesis, a nervous sweat forming on her brow. She wonders if this boy could be a character straight from ancient myths. If that's the case, she realizes they must safeguard him and keep his existence hidden from the Divine Palace. Gangrave overhears her mumbling, questioning what the Divine Palace has to do with any of this. Kaguya quickly brushes it off, claiming it was nothing of significance. The captain regards her with suspicion, but opts to postpone the discussion for now. Gangrave decides to take charge of the situation, instructing his officers to remain outside. The narrative flashes back to the moment Azuma first awoke in a world of confusion. He was met not by a single individual, but by a whole squad of formidable warriors. His attempts to clarify his origins only exacerbated the situation. The idea of an island nation from across the sea was met with sheer disbelief. The rest of the squad listened intently, their faces a mask of silent judgment. One of the women found the notion of him traversing the vast ocean utterly implausible. Another confessed she had never heard of a place named Nihon in her life. The discussion ignited a wild theory. Could there be another continent out there? Yet the idea was quickly dismissed as mere fantasy, a tale no one had ever encountered. Gangrave explains that their continent is encircled by a vast, perilous ocean. It's a colossal landmass, but one from which there is absolutely no escape. The waters teem with monstrous beings and fierce storms, a lethal barrier to the outside world. He realizes that if Azuma speaks the truth, it implies another world truly exists. The captain shuts his eyes, grappling with the immense weight of this revelation. He rubs his temples, realizing that interdimensional travel is giving him a monumental headache. Gangrave attempts to summarize the facts as he comprehends them, starting with the boy's name. Azuma reiterates his tale. He's 20, hailing from a place called Hiroshima in an island nation. One of the women is more intrigued by how he maintains such youthful skin at his age. Gangrave sighs, deciding to set aside the existential crisis and figure out their next steps. Gangrave weighs his choices. Sending Azuma home would be ideal, but it's unfeasible. The simplest option is to just leave him behind, the fastest and least complicated choice. Azuma understands he's a liability, and this group has no space for excess baggage. Yet, as the candle flickers low, the captain rethinks his harsh reasoning. He ponders their earlier discussion, attempting to gauge the enigmatic boy. He determines that Azuma poses no danger, merely being incredibly naive and outmatched. He resolves he can't just abandon the kid to perish. His conscience won't permit it. With newfound determination, he reaches his final conclusion. He will employ Azuma. The plan involves assigning him menial tasks around the camp. For Azuma, this represents the sole opportunity he needs to demonstrate his value in this unfamiliar world. Azuma bows deeply, begging for a chance to remain and vowing to tackle any task given. Gang Rave observes the boy's demeanor, surprisingly calm for someone in his predicament. The lieutenants now confront a new dilemma. Which unit will take care of the newcomer? The red-haired warrior quickly dismisses the idea of him joining her team with a smug expression. She clarifies that her unit is for mages, leaving no space for someone lacking magical abilities. Kaguya, the Shrine Maiden, also declines, asserting her all-female unit cannot accommodate a male. Gang Rave realizes that their two magic-oriented teams have no room for a non-magic individual. A third woman arrogantly turns him down, stating her special operations team is definitely not an option. The captain has to concede. Placing a non-combatant in a combat unit is a dreadful idea. His gaze shifts to the quiet giant Orthros, contemplating another possibility. However, Orthros, the silent giant, merely shakes his head. A clear and final rejection. Gang Rave acknowledges that putting Azuma in a frontline infantry unit is unfeasible. He then dismisses his own unit, correctly guessing Azuma has never ridden a horse. Arlius, his second-in-command, also graciously declines the responsibility of looking after the newcomer. The captain agrees. Their intelligence division is hardly suitable for a lost child. With all other options exhausted, they turn their attention to the last remaining unit leaders. Batag, the man, immediately panics, insisting his unit is also off the table. His partner Waika explains their archers must be adaptable fighters, not just extra weight. Gang Rave is left utterly shocked, having officially run out of places for Azuma. Yet Waika Flash wears a predatory grin, offering to train him with a Spartan method. The women in the squad unanimously agree. He's not their concern. With every unit leader turning him down, Gang Rave is completely out of ideas. But as the captain struggles to think, Azuma suddenly has a realization. He looks up, a single thought piercing through his gloom. He wants to cook. The captain's eyes widen, a flicker of hope igniting in his mind. He turns to Azuma, his voice booming across the camp as he inquires if the boy can cook. Azuma affirms he has ample training, a statement that captures the entire company's attention. He holds a simple cloth, ready to transform this battlefield into his kitchen. Azuma gazes at the enormous cauldron, realizing he's far from a non-stick pan. The rest of the squad can only observe, their faces a blend of shock and curiosity. The first spoonful is offered, and the captain's world is on the verge of being flipped. The flavor strikes him like a physical impact, a surge of pure, unfiltered deliciousness. He proclaims this is the most astonishing shock his palate has ever encountered. His mind races to grasp the mellow, creamy soup and the delicate sweetness of the vegetables. The sharp zest of the cheese cuts through the richness, uniting the entire dish in perfect balance. The verdict is finally announced, resonating throughout the camp. Azuma has succeeded. Soon, the entire company is feasting, with soldiers declaring it the best meal they've ever had. Even the skeptics among the squad can't help but smile, admitting they've never tasted anything this good. One warrior feels his strength returning, claiming this meal is worth 100 men in the upcoming battle. Even the most stoic, helmeted knight can only eat in silent, respectful approval. Kaguya concedes that after a meal like this, she needs to improve her own skills. Arlius nods, understanding she has much to learn from their new culinary expert. Even the most discerning squad members are completely charmed by the feast. One of them relishes the taste, concluding that good food is just good food. Her companion agrees, deciding that deliciousness is a perfectly reasonable argument. The whole leadership team shares a meal, a rare moment of harmony in the camp. Yet Gengrave observes them, his thoughts already focused on the larger picture. He ponders the unusual dish, a meal unlike anything he has ever experienced. As Azuma serves the others, they begin to believe his tale of another world might hold truth. The captain's mind sharpens. If Azuma possesses knowledge from across the sea, he must be safeguarded. Gang Rave realizes Azuma's expertise is far too precious to squander on menial tasks. He expresses his gratitude to Azuma, admitting this was the finest meal he's ever had. The entire group gathers around their new chef, their expressions filled with appreciation and relief. A confident grin spreads across Ganggrave's face as a new strategy begins to take shape. His fist clenches, a silent testament to his newfound determination. He places a hand on Azuma's shoulder, formally welcoming him to the team. Azuma can only gaze up at the captain, still absorbing his sudden change in fate. Ganggrave's face radiates unwavering confidence in his choice. Azuma pauses, the reality of this new life finally sinking in. With a resolute smile, he embraces his new position, ready for whatever lies ahead. Gangrave officially assigns Azuma the task of supporting the entire company through his culinary skills. This humble agreement would mark the beginning of an epic heroic saga. The narrative jumps ahead, recounting the history of the continent of Sobru. For a century, it was known as the Age of Dark Wars, a period of relentless bloodshed. But this savage era was abruptly halted by the emergence of a single individual. That individual was Gangrave, who would eventually be hailed as the Continental King. He would surmount every challenge to become humanity's first and last hero king. A legendary tale of the king would be passed down through the ages. Years later, a retainer would inquire how the king managed to end the ceaseless wars. He would list the expected answers: charisma, strategy, diplomacy, all the usual resume fillers. But the king would merely shake his head, dismissing all those notions. He would assert that it was a single bowl of stew that brought an end to the age of conflict. His retainers would listen, puzzled as he shared his genuine philosophy. He'd explain that while those factors mattered, they weren't the true foundation. What a nation truly requires, he'd say, is a full belly and a good meal. And that's why a simple stew was sufficient to alter the course of history. It was a lesson, he'd confess, learned from a very dear friend. And this is the tale of that king, his 9 legendary allies, and the boy who set it all in motion. But that future was still far off. For now, the war in Rinbel continued to rage. His soldiers cheer, having finally breached the enemy's primary line of defense. The enemy's formation collapses, their soldiers screaming and panicking as they begin to retreat. Gangrave thrusts his sword forward, signaling the final charge to eliminate the stragglers. He and his cavalry carve through the turmoil, overwhelming the shattered army. Back at camp, a victorious shout heralds their return and their significant triumph. The returning soldiers, battered yet alive, cheer for the boy who nourished them. One warrior clutches his armor, attributing their revived spirit to Azuma's cooking. But Azuma can only gaze in horror at the blood-soaked reality of their battle. Gangrave and his lieutenants return weary and stained, yet undeniably victorious. The sight of so much blood overwhelms him, and our boy feels himself growing faint. He forces a smile, attempting to welcome them back despite his overwhelming shock. Thus, after being thrust into another world, Azuma began his new life as the company's cook. With the conflict finally concluded, the group intends to relax and recover in a nearby settlement. Gangrave commends his soldiers for their hard work, assuring them of a well-earned reward for their triumph. However, he cautions Azuma that entering the town could pose a challenge for him. His unusual attire and habits would certainly attract unwanted scrutiny from the townsfolk. Azuma attempts to clarify, insisting he isn't from beyond the outer sea as they assume. He figures it's best to be completely transparent rather than face constant misunderstandings. He clarifies that he hails neither from this continent nor from beyond its waters. At last, he confesses the reality. He isn't a human from this realm at all. But just as the interdimensional discussion heats up, someone spills the evil juice. Gangrave listens closely, his mind racing to piece together Azuma's narrative. Suddenly, he jumps up, inquiring if Azuma is from the legendary village known as the Divine Seat. The name means nothing to Azuma, adding yet another layer of confusion to his predicament. Gangrave elaborates that this village is part of an ancient myth on the continent of Sobru. It recounts a time after the gods vanished when bizarre occurrences began to unfold. Individuals from distant lands would suddenly materialize, thought to be sent by the gods, and the location they originated from became known as the Village of the Divine Seat. Azuma's mind connects the dots, realizing this must relate to the idea of magic. Gangrave affirms this, adding that the sages who introduced magic to this world also came from there. Our protagonist finally understands. His interdimensional blunder aligns perfectly with their local legends. The term magic lingers in the air and Azuma's mind struggles to grasp it. He finally exclaims in disbelief, questioning if this world truly possesses magic. His imagination runs rampant with visions of wizards and dragons, the ultimate fantasy trope. A flicker of hope ignites as he wonders if he might possess some hidden magical ability. But Gangrave swiftly dashes that dream, stating he has absolutely no magical talent. And, just like that, our protagonist's moment of glory deflates into a puddle of disappointment. The captain tries to lift his spirits, insisting that his remarkable cooking skills are more than sufficient. He then redirects the conversation to a more sinister topic, an organization that finds people like Azuma troublesome. Azuma's interest is piqued, curious about what kind of organization would pursue him. Gangrave reveals it's the Divine Palace, a powerful religious faction of zealots to the south. Azuma realizes he's not merely from across the sea, but from outside this world entirely. The chilling realization strikes him. He's not just a lost child, he's a high-value target. But Gangrave reassures him, saying no one would suspect his true origins. He offers Azuma a spot in the company until he can figure out a way back home. Azuma looks up, a glimmer of hope in his eyes at the unexpected proposition. The captain's smile is sincere, a silent vow of safety and belonging. Azuma gratefully agrees, promising to repay the kindness they've extended to him. Gangrave explains he can't enter town just yet, but asks if Azuma needs anything. Azuma ponders the request, his thoughts already drifting to his new kitchen. But his musings are interrupted by a new voice as a woman with a pipe approaches. She confirms he's the new recruit who was with Gangrave, her tone casual yet direct. She's a childhood friend of the captain and leads their special operations unit. Azuma's mind short-circuits as he tries to process her tactical outfit. Noticing his gaze, she offers him a closer look with a sly grin. He hurriedly declines, insisting he was merely searching for her tent. The woman, Lil, finds his flustered state amusing, asking if he has a type. Azuma can only puff his cheeks in annoyance, pleading with her to stop teasing. But his innocent, flustered reaction is just too entertaining for her to resist. Having had her fun, she finally directs him to the right location. She guides him to a large tent, the headquarters for her special unit. Azuma nervously peeks inside the tent, calling out for Lil. Inside, a woman with red hair lifts her gaze from her rest, acknowledging the young chef. She confirms that their Captain Gangrave has already filled her in on the entire story. Azuma cuts to the chase, requesting her assistance in crafting some cooking tools. He elaborates that the tools in this world are too foreign for him to handle effectively. He refers to mage engineering, a craft that infuses objects with magical abilities. And coincidentally, Lil is the leader of the mage engineer unit. Azuma presents her with his sketches for a cutting board and a frying pan. She's perplexed by the idea of a pan that can't also prepare soup, a culinary disaster. She questions the army's need for a specialized board solely for chopping. Azuma lectures her on hygiene, stating their current tools are nearly useless. He asserts that what they possess now is simply inadequate for cooking. He recalls the horror of discovering a cutting board infested with unsettling black mold. Just the thought makes him shudder in culinary revulsion. Lil examines his straightforward designs, a contemplative look on her face. A confident grin spreads across her face, intrigued by his unusual request. She winks, admitting that his fervent appeal has ignited her own creativity. Azuma's eyes widen with anticipation, asking how soon she can create them. She announces she'll begin immediately as magical clones of herself spring into action. The raw materials are set out, a block of wood and a piece of ore ready for transformation. Azuma stares at the raw materials, utterly confused about how she'll utilize them. Lil opts to start with the knife, her hands glowing with dark, magical energy. With a surge of power, she starts to crush and shape the raw ore with her bare hands. Azuma can only watch in sheer horror at this display of magical blacksmithing. He wonders if this is merely brute strength, but quickly realizes he's witnessing magic firsthand. Lil explains she needs to channel her magic directly into the metal to enhance its durability. Azuma is astonished, discovering that magic can directly modify material properties. He casually mentions that in his world, they simply mix in carbon and eliminate impurities. The mage engineer freezes, her mind blown by this straightforward metallurgical insight. She turns to him, demanding he elaborate on this strange and unfamiliar technique. She grabs Azuma by the shirt, her eyes wide with sudden intense curiosity. He stutters, admitting he's no expert but knows raw ore is filled with impurities. He explains the basic idea of a furnace using heat to separate different materials. Lil slowly pieces it together, realizing various substances melt at different temperatures. Thus, Azuma embarks on an impromptu science lesson, sharing everything he can recall. He clarifies that his knowledge is just common sense, essentially dropping a chemistry class on a magic user. She contemplates his words, connecting ideas like combustion and carbon dioxide. A slow smile spreads across her face. This peculiar boy's knowledge is captivating. She picks up the chunk of ore again, viewing it in an entirely new perspective. Azuma clarifies that while it's good ore, it's still far from usable steel. Lil concedes that based on her newfound knowledge, their current technology is still primitive. She tells Azuma that the first step is to eliminate all the impurities. With intense focus, she channels her magic into the raw ore. Her hands glow as she literally squeezes the slag out of the metal, a perfectly normal blacksmithing technique. Azuma can only watch as the impurities are physically extracted from the glowing mass. Following his guidance, she concentrates on mixing carbon directly into the purified metal. In a flash of light, the raw materials transform into a flawless, gleaming ingot of steel. Azuma is utterly amazed by the impeccable result, praising her remarkable skill. Lil puffs out her chest, basking in the well-deserved praise with a smug grin. She beams with pride, clearly delighted by her successful experiment. Azuma can only smile, acknowledging that Lil is truly incredible. He politely requests her to craft the tools based on his precise specifications. As time ticks by, the mage engineer dives into her unique task. The outcome is impeccable: a contemporary knife, cutting board, and frying pan. However, the meticulous process has left Lil utterly exhausted. Azuma's demands were incredibly detailed. Azuma tests the knife, but his face darkens upon discovering an issue. He starts his feedback, noting that the blade's angle is just a bit off. He highlights a slight distortion in the metal, a flaw only he can detect. He expresses regret for the inconvenience, but requests her to make adjustments, much to her dismay. Azuma clarifies that he can't settle for less if he aims to craft the ideal dish. He surveys her workshop, curious about the other creations she typically makes. Lil's eyes light up with joy, thrilled that someone is finally interested in her creative endeavors. She proudly shares that mage engineering transcends mere work. It's her way of breathing life into ideas. She presents one of her inventions, a magical card capable of transmitting sound anywhere, anytime. Azuma gives it a try, but it appears to be just a basic megaphone, still a work in progress. Next, she showcases a card that can conjure flames, a magical fire starter. Yet she sheepishly confesses it's useless for anyone without magical abilities, like our boy. Azuma then points out a flying board, noting a recurring theme. All her inventions are incomplete prototypes. He faces her, a new question brewing in his mind. He gestures to a peculiar symbol on the device, inquiring about its meaning. Lil explains that the symbol represents a magispell crafted with ink from crushed magical crystals. These crystals are solidified magic, infusing the ink with unique inherent power. By inscribing these characters, a mage engineer can alter objects and forge magical tools. Azuma ponders why there's only one character, suggesting that more would enhance the effect. But Lil clarifies that merging multiple magispells often leads to chaotic results. Azuma contemplates this, questioning if it's merely about activating them simultaneously. He proposes writing 2 stable spells that could be triggered at the same time. He likens it to an electronic circuit that requires a method to switch between commands. The idea strikes Lil like a physical blow, leaving her momentarily speechless. She seizes him, her eyes wide with a sudden flash of brilliance. Azuma might just be a genius. Lil admits she never even thought of a mechanism to alternate between spells. She realizes the main challenge is fitting such a sophisticated system onto a single card. Azuma points out the obvious. Stacking paper would make it too heavy to be practical. That simple, logical statement strikes her like a bolt of lightning. With a triumphant shout, she realizes he has just solved her greatest dilemma. She can inscribe spells on various materials and then merge them into one device. She can't believe she never considered such a straightforward, elegant solution. Azuma can only smile, puzzled by her excitement over his basic reasoning. Suddenly, she calls out his name, snapping him back to reality. With a fiery glint in her eyes, she proclaims they're on the brink of a technological revolution. Lil gazes at Azuma, her eyes shimmering with an intense level of scientific curiosity. But a new thought pierces through his confusion. If his knowledge can ignite a revolution, he's all in. He begins by introducing the concept of a conro, a portable stove from his world. To clarify, he decides to sketch out some proper blueprints for her. Together, they pore over the designs, merging his scientific insights with her magical expertise to craft the ideal device. After detailing all the features, Azuma finally concludes his thorough explanation. Lil stands in stunned silence, utterly amazed by the sheer breadth of his ideas. Azuma suggests they take a dinner break, thinking they can resume this tomorrow. But Lil firmly declines, her focus now laser-sharp and unwavering. She grabs him, insisting her mind is ablaze, and they can't afford to lose this momentum. She slams her hand on the blueprints, declaring they're building this right now. Azuma can only gaze, swept up in her sudden frenzied burst of creativity. He quickly consents, vowing to remain by her side until the task is complete. They labor through the night, a whirlwind of magic and engineering. The process is a chaotic blend of magical flames and meticulous scientific guidance. Lil meticulously paints the complex mage spells, animating Azuma's designs. With a shared glance of sleep-deprived victory, they finally complete their creation. The monumental effort leaves Lil utterly exhausted, slumped over the workbench. Azuma gazes down at the weary mage, a wave of gratitude washing over him. He urges her to rest, promising to whip up a delicious meal using her creation. With his new custom tools ready, Azuma sets out to prepare a special dish for Lil. The company has finally replenished its pantry, a reward for their hard-fought triumph. However, as he examines the new spices, something feels oddly familiar. He stares in disbelief. Soy sauce, mirin, and sake, Japanese staples from another realm. A nearby soldier realizes these must be rare items from the legendary village of the Divine Seat. The realization hits Azuma hard. He may not be the only one summoned here. But that's a puzzle for later. Right now, he has a promise to fulfill. He proudly showcases their creation, a dual-burner magical stove ready for its first use. With a burst of arcane energy, the mage spells ignite, bringing the Conro to life. He starts the meal sautéing onions and butter, the first step in his culinary gratitude. He cooks the onions until they turn perfectly translucent, a simple yet vital step. Once cooled, he combines the onions with minced meat, egg, and seasonings. He kneads the mixture by hand until it's ready to form into patties. He shapes a flawless patty, expertly pressing out any air. With the pan heated, it's time to introduce the main attraction to the oil. The patty lands in the hot pan with a satisfying sizzle, the sound of a promise. He covers the pan, allowing the meat to cook slowly and evenly for 5 minutes. He flips it over, revealing a beautifully seared crust on the opposite side. With the patty set aside, he focuses on the sauce, utilizing the rich pan drippings. He adds more onions, followed by the familiar Japanese seasonings he discovered earlier. The sauce simmers, a rich and savory fusion of familiar tastes. He plates the completed dish, a perfect hamburger steak, a tribute to his homeland. He gently rouses the weary mage, presenting the fruits of their joint effort. Lil groggily inquires about the meal, and Azuma explains she's his first taste tester. She sits down to the dish, completely foreign to this world, but as she inspects it closely, her expression shifts to one of clear uncertainty. Azuma's smile fades as Lil confesses she has a stronger version to compare. He panics, asking what specifically she finds unappealing. All that effort for nothing? She explains it's typically the gamey aroma that she can't stand. But this dish smells different, and she asserts that this one will be fine. He clarifies that the sauce uses garlic and soy sauce to mask any gamey flavor. With a hint of doubt, Lil slices into the hamburger steak for the first time. The first bite hits her taste buds, and her eyes widen in pure astonishment. She closes her eyes, relishing a flavor she never thought meat could have. All pretense of dislike disappears as she begins to chew with enthusiasm. The mage engineer is completely absorbed in the meal, devouring it without hesitation. Her eyes sparkle with a radiant smile as she finally declares it delicious. She takes another bite, her previous aversion to meat now a distant memory. It's not just the sauce. She realizes the meat itself is astonishingly good. Azuma exhales a quiet sigh of relief, a warm smile spreading across his face. Azuma shares that a chef's greatest joy is winning over a picky eater. Lil is so completely sold that she instantly asks for another helping. He grins, softly telling her she'll need to hold on just a bit longer. With a radiant blush, she eagerly agrees to wait for round 2. Her enthusiastic response leaves him feeling quite flustered. He ends up preparing hamburger steaks for the whole group until they return. He even tries his hand at tofu burgers, realizing he'll need Lil to create more gear. Lil, for her part, feels quite proud, convinced of her own brilliance. She proclaims that while she may not be famous yet, she's destined for greatness. Her unique skill, mage engineering, is a power like no other. She clarifies that standard magic creates phenomena from nothing. In contrast, mage engineering enhances existing objects with magical traits. In simpler terms, a mage can summon fire from thin air, However, a mage engineer requires a physical medium to channel their magic. It turns out Lil always aspired to be a mage, but her talents lay elsewhere. So she committed herself to her craft, spending her time in trial and error. For Lil, those days were filled with joy and endless exploration. For Gangrave, however, they were days of financial stress. Her abilities were crucial, enabling her to build entire fortifications for the team. Yet, her R&D expenses were a constant headache for their captain. Gangrave stares at the pile of bills, a familiar headache creeping back. Lil understands her inventions are still far from practical or effective. This ignites a desperate urge to create something truly beneficial for her friends. So when a soldier approaches her with an unusual request, she's completely taken aback. He explains that their new chef, Azuma, needs her to make some special tools. The request comes from Azuma, the newcomer who recently joined their team. His cooking is hailed as the best meal anyone has ever tasted. Lil admits she hasn't had the chance to talk to the new recruit yet. She's intrigued by his enigmatic nature and remarkable culinary skills. The soldier encourages her, viewing this as a perfect chance. Lil ponders this, thinking a chat with the new kid might actually be engaging. The soldier motions for her to follow, asking what she means by her confusion. He smiles, assuring her that everything will make sense once she talks to Azuma. Lil remembers Gangrave saying something similar, but she didn't grasp it then. But as fate would have it, she was about to discover exactly what he meant. She anticipated a grand request, but he simply wants a knife, a cutting board, and a frying pan. Yet, as she examines the blueprints Azuma sketched, her viewpoint starts to change. These weren't mere tools. They were designs based on ideas she'd never even considered. She realizes Azuma isn't just a chef. He's a craftsman fixated on perfecting his tools. With a cheeky wink, she concedes that Gangrave was right. This kid is way more fascinating than she assumed. Her curiosity was piqued, but Azuma's knowledge extended far beyond basic designs. He casually discusses metallurgy from his world, like the addition of carbon. Lil listens closely as he explains using heat to refine the ore. This kind of insight is a trade secret passed down through generations of blacksmiths. She's utterly amazed, demanding he clarify this groundbreaking concept. Azuma realizes she's just casually revealed a state secret to her. She remembers being thrown out of forges for trying to learn these very secrets. To her, Azuma's common sense is a treasure trove of advanced knowledge from another world. She starts to interrogate him, beginning with the most fundamental principles of matter. He begins to explain the idea of atoms, a term she's never even encountered before. He describes the essential building blocks of his world, tiny particles known as atoms. Lil can only gaze, her thoughts swirling from this astonishingly advanced knowledge. She bombards him with inquiries, ranging from the essence of air to the Earth's makeup. A gradual smile forms on her lips. This lesson is the most captivating of her existence. She realizes that by his world's metrics, their technology is laughably outdated. The initial step in this new endeavor becomes unmistakably clear: purify the metal. For the first time, she directs her magic using scientific concepts, not merely instinct. She now grasps that true mastery stems not from talent, but from the conviction that it's achievable. Her thoughts resonate with the teachings of a legendary mage engineer, Alturia. In a burst of light, she finally comprehends how to create an ingot of extraordinary quality. Azuma proudly displays his new tools, thrilled about the meals he can now prepare. Yet, Lil remembers the exhausting process, as Azuma's impossibly high expectations pushed her to her limits. She realizes that his unwillingness to settle is the very essence of his brilliance. In fact, she concludes that his creativity and culinary skills are a genius that far exceeds her own. She gazes up at him, her face a blend of fatigue, admiration, and newfound respect. After a long night of effort, their joint project is finally finished. The outcome is the Mage Conro, a magical stove born from their shared expertise. For Lil, Azuma's presence is a refreshing change, a new wellspring of inspiration. This project gave her a sense of achievement unlike any of her past inventions. Though the concepts were borrowed, it was her hands that crafted this masterpiece. Azuma beams, vowing to whip up all kinds of delectable dishes with the tools she provided. Lil reclines, a content smile gracing her face as she reflects on their creation. She realizes these tools aren't meant for battle, but for a culinary culture that will endure beyond any conflict. She had dedicated her entire life to research, pondering if a god had finally granted her a reprieve. But she quickly corrects herself, realizing it wasn't divine intervention. It was Azuma who offered her this chance, this new direction ahead. A warm, content blush spreads across her cheeks as she embraces this new reality. Later, Azuma presents her with his latest creation, a token of gratitude for her hard work. She takes her first bite, and her entire world is shaken by the flavor. The taste is so extraordinary it literally sweeps her off her feet. A culinary explosion of pure bliss. For the first time ever, she discovers that meat can be genuinely delightful. The rich, savory juices from the patty flood her mouth with incredible flavor, and the sauce elevates the dish, a perfect compliment she already cherishes. She realizes Gangrave's odd hobby of collecting seasonings wasn't in vain after all. In Azuma's hands, even the most unfamiliar ingredients transform into a masterpiece. She now understands that his talent isn't merely about crafting rare food. It's true culinary artistry. He blends simple ingredients in perfect harmony to create something entirely novel. Lil continues to savor her meal with pure, unfiltered joy, completely enchanted. After this feast, Azuma approaches her with a fresh list of requests for tools. And Lil eagerly agrees, ready to assist in crafting even more delightful dishes. Lil observes him, her mind still grappling with the vastness of his knowledge. Finally, she asks him how he manages to generate so many diverse ideas. Azuma pauses briefly, a distant expression crossing his face. He confesses that when he began, his journey was riddled with nothing but failures. Lil is utterly stunned, unable to fathom the culinary genius ever making a misstep. He reminisces about his initial attempts, dishes so terrible they were practically a crime. She listens, trying to envision the strict father who molded this remarkable young chef. But Azuma clarifies that it was his profound respect for his father that drove his relentless training. He states that skill is merely the groundwork. True cooking is an ongoing pursuit of betterment. Lil has an epiphany, realizing he's articulating the very essence of creativity. He explains with a gentle smile that he simply strives to do his best every single day. He articulates the essence of creativity, a notion that leaves Lil pondering deeply. She thinks back to her own projects, the incomplete inventions she had proudly displayed. Now she views them as worthless, products of arrogance and insufficient effort. The outcome was a workshop cluttered with ineffective tools and squandered potential. Her ongoing costly failures were a constant source of anxiety for their captain. Her research consistently drained the mercenary group's limited finances. Yet Azuma's words ignited a new passion, a frenzied desire to create something substantial. She realizes she had been complacent, never pushing herself to genuinely improve. Creating was enough for her. She never aimed for what lay beyond the initial design. She sees her current self as pathetic, merely a shadow of the inventor she aspires to be. But Azuma interrupts her thoughts, inquiring about one of her seemingly pointless inventions. He gestures toward a levitating board, one of her many incomplete prototypes. He enthusiastically explains how it could transport heavy loads without causing damage. Lil is utterly shocked, having never thought of such a straightforward practical application. She dramatically proclaims that Azuma is undoubtedly a brilliant mind. Her initial idea was confined to personal flight, a far less practical concept. But with his perspective, it transforms into a tool that could revolutionize their supply chain. She gazes at him with sincere appreciation, thanking him for broadening her perspective. Azuma is completely perplexed, unaware that he just addressed her greatest challenge. He clarifies that while she viewed them as failures, he simply redefined their purpose. She shuts her eyes, offering him a soft, heartfelt thank you. She pledges to find a purpose for every tool, regardless of how useless it may appear. With renewed determination in her gaze, she resolves to create items with genuine significance. Her aim is straightforward, to craft things that are truly beneficial to others. The scene transitions, and Gangrave is summoned to meet Lil in an open field. He stands before the mage engineer, curious about the purpose of this meeting. Lil announces that she has a brand new invention she wishes to showcase. Gangrave is immediately doubtful, questioning if it's yet another unfinished prototype. But Lil, looking weary yet proud, insists this one is the genuine article. She presents him with a small dark stone, explaining it's the first of 2 new creations. Gangrave stares at the peculiar object, utterly confused about its purpose. She simply instructs him to observe, her expression confident and slightly playful. With a powerful throw, she sends the stone flying into the field with a single command. Upon impact, it detonates in a massive, violent explosion. Gangrave can only gawk in shock at the sheer destructive force. Lil calmly clarifies that this is her latest invention, an explosion stone. It's a straightforward device. Say the password and it blows up in 3 seconds. He panics, realizing this item is far too hazardous to keep in his pocket. But Lil reassures him she's implemented safety measures, which sounds somewhat comforting. She details the first safety feature: it won't activate unless held by the user. Secondly, the countdown only begins after it's thrown, a nice touch for finger safety. And lastly, it includes a proximity sensor, refusing to explode if the user is too near. The scene flashes back, revealing that these safety measures were all Azuma's ideas. Gangrave is utterly astonished, having never encountered mage spells with such intricate logic. But Lil isn't done showcasing her second invention, a timed incendiary stone. She points to a far-off spot in the field, instructing the captain to pay close attention. With unnerving calmness, she announces that in 5 seconds that spot will ignite. A silent countdown lingers in the air, the seconds passing with grim certainty. Right on cue, the ground erupts in a towering pillar of flame, shocking Gangrave. Gangrave is left speechless, his mind racing to comprehend the overwhelming destructive force. He glances at Lil, reminding her that as a mage engineer, this kind of magic shouldn't be within her reach. She clarifies that the stone can be programmed for up to 2 hours, igniting for mere seconds before disappearing completely. Gangrave is taken aback, realizing it's an ideal tool for stealth missions, leaving no trace behind. With a confident grin, he asserts that this is far more than a simple trinket and pledges to support her research. He officially assigns her the task of enhancing the designs, and Lil agrees without a moment's pause. The captain gazes at the crater, puzzled about when she found the time to invent such a groundbreaking weapon. Her straightforward reply, "just now," leaves him utterly perplexed. He accuses her of fabricating the truth, unable to believe she crafted a multi-effect Magispell in such a short time. But Lil merely raises a finger, urging him to examine it closely. This isn't a new spell at all. Gangrave stares at the stone, his mind struggling to comprehend what he's holding. He inquires how she managed to engrave so many significant spells without it going haywire. She reveals she adapted a concept from Azuma, designing a system akin to a circuit board. She dubs it a megagram, a framework that stabilizes and manages multiple spells simultaneously. A loud, hearty laugh resonates across the field, shattering the stunned quiet. Gangrave proclaims that Lil is a true genius for crafting such an incredible creation. Yet Lil knows the reality. She's no genius, not by a long shot. She recognizes that a real genius is someone like Azuma, and she merely borrowed his concepts. She considers herself an amateur, satisfied with her abilities, but never striving for more. However, as she gazes forward, she understands that from this moment on, everything will change. She realizes that what she lacks isn't talent, but the creativity to expand on others' knowledge. She vows to evolve into a true creator, one who will eventually outshine even Azuma's brilliance. And history will remember Lil Branch as a pioneer who shaped the future of civilization. Many of her inventions are still in use today, with the Mage Conroe being a prime example. Her other creations, from communication devices to magical vehicles, became the foundation of modern life. She would earn the title of the Mother of Invention, her methods laying the groundwork for a new era. While she developed tools for warfare, she also crafted items to enhance people's lives. After the kingdom's establishment, she stepped down from her role as chief mage engineer. She then founded a private academy, sharing her expertise with the next generation. This institution would grow into the largest research center on the continent, a testament to her legacy. The school she established would endure for centuries, a shining beacon of knowledge. But Lil understood her technology was never intended for combat. She dreaded a future where war became a lucrative business, ravaging the land for profit. This principle was instilled in every student who passed through her halls. She left behind a straightforward philosophy for her academy to uphold. The spirit guiding all their research would be creativity. History also noted a slightly less significant detail about her life. She reportedly had an unmatched passion for hamburger steaks. One tale even suggests she devoured over 10 in a single sitting, though that's unverified, probably. To truly grasp her story, one must first understand the man who inspired it all, Azuma Shuri. They say the gap between a genius and a fool is razor thin. To comprehend Azuma, we must first meet his childhood companion, Yamagishi. The two were inseparable, best friends from elementary school through their graduation. Their tale began in the 3rd grade, a simple friendship in the classroom. But Yamagishi soon discovered that being friends with Azuma came with certain culinary risks. He endured Azuma's early bento boxes, which resembled more like charcoal briquettes. This weekly ordeal of culinary terror continued, with Azuma growing increasingly gaunt. Finally, Yamagishi couldn't bear it any longer and asked if Azuma's mother was a terrible cook. Azuma could only stare back, completely taken aback by the inquiry. He quickly clarified that this culinary disaster was his own doing, a personal failure. Yamagishi poses a simple question: has Azuma ever considered reading a cookbook? Azuma stands there, utterly bewildered, as if recipes are some kind of alien tech. Yet this straightforward idea would spark the flame of his culinary brilliance. With a radiant grin, Azuma expresses his gratitude to his friend for this transformative insight. From that moment on, Azuma's bento creations underwent a remarkable evolution. In just 2 months, his lunches transformed from hazardous to beautifully crafted dishes. This culinary adventure solidified their friendship, a bond built on questionable bento. And Yamagishi soon discovered an unexpected truth about his companion. Outside the kitchen, Azuma was as ordinary as they come. That is, until a school field trip when Azuma mysteriously disappeared. Yamagishi rushes to inform the other kids that Azuma has been missing since the morning. The adults panic, realizing the gravity of the situation, but it turns out Azuma wasn't lost. He was just in the school kitchen all morning. His eyes shine with pure delight, completely in his zone. As the teacher reprimands Yamagishi, a classmate realizes Azuma is far from ordinary. Even at a theme park, Azuma seems utterly confused, questioning the purpose of it all. Yet Yamagishi remained loyal, sticking by his friend as they entered middle school. Over time, Azuma's quirks softened, allowing him to blend in with his classmates. He eventually joined a local high school, just like any other student. But it was during high school that Azuma's distinct talents would truly shine. At the school's cultural festival, the teacher announces their class project, a yakisoba stall. However, Azuma insists they won't just make any yakisoba. He has something special in mind. He takes the lead, gathering all the necessary supplies while his classmates look on, puzzled. For Azuma, settling for something average is simply out of the question. He starts directing his classmates, showing them how to achieve the perfect noodle crisp. He's brought a treasure trove of top-notch ingredients, clearly exceeding the class budget. The preparation begins, his knife gliding with the skill of a master chef. Every detail is flawless, including the meticulous deveining of each shrimp. He stir-fries the ingredients expertly, creating a dance of motion in the makeshift kitchen. At last, he adds the sauce, a rich medley of flavors that will unify the dish. He thickens the sauce with a starch slurry, finishing it off with a drizzle of sesame oil. The savory mixture cascades over the crispy noodles, completing his culinary masterpiece. The students are amazed, declaring the sauce incredible and the meal worthy of a restaurant. Soon, a huge crowd gathers at their stall, drawn in by the enthusiastic reviews. The consensus was clear. The yakisoba was an undeniable hit. And, just like that, the class project was hailed as a tremendous success. Throughout high school, Azuma was assigned to every food stall, and he never disappointed. Through it all, Yamagishi stood by him, whether they were studying or just enjoying life. Their friendship had been solidified through countless taste tests, a bond stronger than any bento. Of course, it turns out Yamagishi wasn't exactly the model student either. One summer, Yamagishi embarked on a solo trip abroad and simply disappeared. He returned claiming he had just been gambling, a story Azuma was too polite to question. But soon enough, their high school years came to a quiet, starlit conclusion. On the night before his departure, Azuma receives one final call from his best friend. Yamagishi's voice is warm and familiar, inquiring about his upcoming move to Tokyo. He reassures Azuma that no matter where he goes, he will always remain the same. Yet Azuma confesses with a hint of sadness that he's worried about what might change. He knows the training will be tough, but he's resolved to see it through. Yamagishi listens, a knowing smile gracing his lips. He fondly remembers Azuma's obsessive nature, the kind of guy who'd make everything from scratch. Azuma sheepishly admits that it was a long series of failures, yet he confidently claims that ultimately he crafted something superior to any store-bought item. His face radiates unwavering confidence in his abilities. Yamagishi opts to call it a night, and Azuma concurs, aware of his early morning. Just before they disconnect, a thoughtful silence envelops them. Yamagishi's voice breaks the quiet, hinting he has one last thought to share. Azuma waits, eager for his friend's parting words of motivation. Yamagishi brushes it aside, simply assuring they'll reunite in 2 years. With that straightforward promise, their final exchange concludes. Yet, as destiny would have it, Azuma and Yamagishi would never cross paths again. And thus, Azuma Shuri's tale on Earth reached its conclusion. The stage for his next adventure was set in an unimaginable realm, a distant world where his new journey was just beginning. However, his quest was rooted in a simple yet vexing question: what defines talent? He remembers his early struggles, unable to get anything right despite his efforts. When asked about his talent, he often finds himself at a loss. He learned that talent is something you're born with, while effort is acquired. The recollection of his grueling, often painful training lingers in his thoughts. It was a lesson from his father, one he didn't fully grasp back then. Now, in this unfamiliar world, he introduces himself, eager to demonstrate his value. A month has gone by since Azuma set foot on the continent of Sebre. He has gained insights about this realm, yet a path home remains out of reach. The familiar spices serve as a painful reminder of the world he has lost. These were crafted centuries ago by others from the same legendary village. But the trail of knowledge ends there, leading to a frustrating impasse. The next conflict for the company takes them to a coastal woodland, battling for salt rights. Salt is essential, and without it, the entire company faces dire consequences. Even Azuma's culinary creations are at stake, as the absence of salt jeopardizes his dishes. Fortunately, Lil's groundbreaking inventions have brought them a substantial reward. With the company's triumph, Azuma contemplates requesting additional kitchen staff. The mercenary camp buzzes with activity, serving as a temporary refuge in the woods. In his kitchen, Azuma whips up another dish, stirring a pot of rich stew. He pauses to sample his creation, ensuring the taste is absolutely spot on. But his concentration shatters as he notices something odd at the camp's edge. A solitary hooded figure lurks among the trees, observing them from afar. Azuma approaches Kaguya, the shrine maiden, inquiring if she noticed the enigmatic watcher. Startled by his sudden presence, she drops a towering stack of plates. As the dishes crash to the ground, she insists she's okay, though clearly rattled. This is Kaguya, a key officer in the company, currently having a very rough day. In fact, she leads their intelligence division, a surprising detail at this moment. She belongs to the influential religious group known as the Divine Palace. When Azuma first encountered her, he saw a woman of grace and beauty. A stark contrast to the other women in the company, who were more hands-on. But as she stumbles, a massive hand reaches down to assist her. It's the silent giant, Orthros, offering help without uttering a word. He bends to gather the plates, his enormous size contrasting with his gentle demeanor. This is Orthros, one of the company's most formidable fighters. He stands as the stoic leader of the 2nd Infantry Division. His towering stature and powerful physique embody strength. And true to his nature, the man remains completely, utterly silent. He leads by example, allowing his actions to convey his intentions. Kaguya finally steadies herself, inquiring what Azuma wanted to share. He gestures toward the woods, revealing he spotted a strange figure observing them. The towering Orthros stands silently behind her, his gaze also fixed on the trees. A flicker of recognition crosses Kaguya's face, as if this isn't new to her. She exhales in frustration, questioning if a certain Kuga is causing issues again. Azuma can only watch, utterly bewildered and out of the loop. Kaguya clarifies that when this individual is troubled, they retreat to train alone. For them, swinging a sword is the sole method to tackle their dilemmas. The trio ventures into the woods, searching for the elusive swordsman. Meanwhile, the camp enjoys an unusual moment of tranquility in the coastal forest. A soldier releases a sigh of pure culinary bliss. Tonight's feast features a lavish shrimp stew, a delightful change from their usual fare. The soldiers eagerly dig in, relishing the fresh seafood that comes with coastal battles. Azuma pours a drink, seeking genuine feedback on his latest culinary creation. Gang rave compliments the dish, and Azuma notes that good seafood elevates everything. The squad's women are thrilled, recognizing the shrimp as a rare local delicacy. Yet Azuma knows that without modern preservation, this fresh catch won't last long. His thoughts wander back to his own world, a painful reminder of his distance from home. He snaps back, informing Gangrave that he spotted the mysterious Kuga heading into the woods. Gangrave listens intently, his expression contemplative as he processes the news. He sighs, explaining that Kuga is likely in the forest, working through a rough patch. Azuma proposes they should approach him to hear his side, but Gangrave brushes off the suggestion, claiming it would only complicate matters. He elaborates that when it comes to the sword, there's nothing he can say to assist. Kuga is a warrior defined by his blade, a true natural talent. Gangrave states plainly that Kuga has an extraordinary gift for swordsmanship. He explains that in his company only a handful are truly exceptional fighters, and Kuga stands out as a master swordsman, a prodigy unmatched by others. The revelation leaves Azuma utterly astonished. There's a master swordsman among them. Azuma's mind races. Swordsmanship in this world must involve some kind of fantastical ability. But Gangrave clarifies that Kuga's skills aren't magical in nature. He explains that while magical swordsmen exist, Kuga is entirely different. The mere thought of a magical swordsman sends Azuma's imagination spiraling. Yet he's quickly grounded, pondering how Kuga could be so unique. Gangrave reveals that Kuga lacks magical abilities. He's just a human with extraordinary physical strength. The captain recalls a specific event that showcased Kuga's remarkable skill. Azuma listens, completely enthralled by the tale of this legendary warrior. In one encounter, Kuga advanced too far and was ambushed by a barrage of arrows. It was a dire situation where any ordinary person would have resigned to their fate. But Gangrave explains that Kuga deflected every single arrow, emerging unscathed. Azuma is left speechless, questioning what kind of manga protagonist he's just learned about. He realizes Kuga is even more of a storybook hero than he ever imagined. Azuma asks how Gangrave can contend with someone like that, and the captain admits it's due to his perfect memory. The silent giant Orthros adds that his own strength stems from sheer relentless effort. Arlius clarifies that her victories come through means other than direct confrontation. Gangrave concedes that in a straightforward duel, none of them can truly defeat Kuga. He clarifies that when he faces Kuga, he relies on memory and tactics, not raw talent. He glances at Azuma, admitting that if a prodigy like Kuga never ceases training, then inevitably he will surpass everyone, including his captain. Azuma wonders what could possibly weigh on the mind of a master swordsman like Kuga. Gangrave confesses he truly has no clue what Kuga is thinking. He shares that conversing with Kuga about swords is futile. His reasoning exists on a different level. Azuma grasps the immense isolating chasm that separates a genius from the rest. The captain recognizes Kuga's internal struggle, but it's a fight only he can face. He reassures Azuma not to fret over it. Gangrave has unwavering belief that Kuga will navigate this path himself. Azuma beams, understanding the profound trust the captain has in his companion. Gangrave's quiet assurance is all Azuma needs to feel at ease. With the serious discussion wrapped up, Azuma offers the captain another drink, restoring a sense of calm to the camp. Azuma reflects on the captain's words, but they bring him little solace. The following day, the enigmatic swordsman Kuga disappears into the forest once more. Despite Gangrave's reassurances, Azuma can't shake his deep concern. He stands in the camp, his thoughts clouded by the prodigy's unspoken battle. Feeling utterly powerless, he wonders what a mere cook could do to assist. After a brief moment of doubt, he resolves to take action. That night, he steps into the shadowy woods alone, a single lantern illuminating his way. The forest's unsettling stillness begins to creep him out, a stark contrast to the lively kitchen. He presses on, recalling tales of an open clearing somewhere ahead. A sudden noise from the shadows pierces the quiet, causing him to freeze. He glances up, heart racing, eager to see who it is. It's Kuga, the master swordsman, his blade glinting in the moonlight. A sharp breath escapes him, his concentration absolute and unyielding. His gaze is like cold steel, his grip on the hilt impossibly firm. Azuma can only watch in sheer dread, realizing this isn't the right moment for a conversation. In an instant, Kuga unleashes a lightning-fast sword strike. His movements exude a grace and strength that seem beyond human capability. The blade slices through the air, a flash of silver and lethal intent. The sword sings as it cuts through the air, showcasing his incredible speed. He completes the motion, his expression changing as he notices Azuma. Kuga stands poised with his blade, embodying a serene yet deadly calm. His eyes are sharp, his stance flawless, ready to strike at any moment. Azuma can only think of one word to describe the scene: stunning. He's witnessed other mercenaries in battle, but this is on an entirely different scale. The swordsman's voice slices through the stillness, inquiring who's present. He pivots swiftly, shifting his focus from training to the newcomer. His demeanor softens upon recognizing Azuma, telling him he startled him. Our boy can only mumble a quiet apology for the interruption. He explains his concern, noting Kuga's frequent disappearances into the woods. And up close, Azuma can't help but notice the prodigy's distractingly handsome features. Azuma realizes this master swordsman is also unfairly distractingly handsome. Kuga smiles, guessing that Gangrave must have sent Azuma to check on him. But Azuma clarifies he came because he knew Kuga couldn't handle this alone. The swordsman chuckles, admitting his own issues pale in comparison to the captain's. He sits down, sharing a rare moment of vulnerability in the moonlit clearing. Kuga invites him to join, and Azuma, a bit starstruck, quickly agrees. The swordsman admits he's surprised Azuma found him so deep in the woods. Azuma points out that Kuga was so engrossed in training, he likely missed everything. Kuga's expression darkens as he confesses his problem remains unresolved. But Azuma suggests a straightforward solution. Sometimes just talking helps. Kuga nods, realizing that after all this time, maybe talking could actually make a difference. He cuts to the chase, confessing he's hit a rough patch. Azuma is taken aback, shocked to hear such honesty from the master swordsman. Kuga shares that while Lil is innovating with new weapons, he's stuck just swinging his sword. Azuma counters, insisting that Kuga's contributions are vital for the company's future. Yet, the swordsman can't accept that. His pride is clearly wounded. He concedes that tools matter, acknowledging Lil's recent advancements. Still, his grip on the hilt tightens, a silent affirmation of his beliefs. He believes a warrior's strength should always outshine their tools. Frustration bubbles up as he admits his sword failed to match Lil's explosive stones. He feels overshadowed by a mere rock, which only fuels his impatience. He knows he must become stronger, quicker, and superior to any weapon. But as that thought crosses his mind, his blade starts to feel dull. He confesses he doesn't quite grasp it, but it seems like a mental block. Azuma sees the vicious cycle. Anxiety dulls the blade, which only breeds more anxiety. Kuga brushes off the idea of talking, claiming a non-fighter like Azuma can't help. Yet Azuma is convinced there's something, anything he can do to assist. His mind wanders back to the one place where he feels at ease, his kitchen. A quiet determination forms in Azuma's eyes as a plan starts to take shape. And just like that, a brilliant idea slices through his worries. Azuma captures the swordsman's attention, confidence shining in his gaze. He poses a simple yet disarming question. "Aren't you hungry?" The master swordsman is completely thrown off by this sudden topic shift. Azuma shares his philosophy. You can't tackle problems on an empty stomach. Kuga can only stare, his warrior's mind struggling to grasp this culinary reasoning. And just like that, Azuma has set up a full kitchen right in the forest. Kuga is astonished, questioning if the kid really brought all this gear for him. Azuma announces he'll use the horse mackerel from dinner to whip up something special. The swordsman is taken aback, wondering if they can really use such a fancy ingredient. But Azuma winks, confident that the gang won't mind if it's for a good cause. With a confident grin, Azuma prepares to work his culinary magic. He lays out the ingredients, fresh horse mackerel and his special tartar sauce. The sauce is a homemade marvel, a mix of eggs, onions, and fresh herbs. He even crafted the mayonnaise from scratch, a tricky process he finally mastered. It required patience and skill, but he appreciates the challenge. He vows to show that all the effort he put into these condiments was worthwhile. Kuga glances at the fresh fish, asking what Azuma plans to do with them. Azuma's eyes light up as he declares he's going to fry them. The swordsman's face brightens as he admits he loves fried food. With his custom knife ready, Azuma starts the prep work for cooking. Azuma's expression hardens, his focus sharp and unwavering. He begins by skillfully filleting the horse mackerel with practiced precision. Every tiny bone is carefully removed, showcasing his deep respect for the craft. He seasons the fillets with salt and a hint of fresh ginger juice. The fish is then placed inside a custom magical refrigerator. It's yet another of Lil's amazing, albeit exhausting, inventions. Of course, the cost for such a device was an astonishing number of hamburger steaks. He carefully places the seasoned fillets in the magical cooler to rest. With the lid shut, he explains that now they just need to wait. Kuga is surprised, but Azuma clarifies that some things require time to reach perfection. To pass the time, Azuma offers the swordsman a bottle of sake. He fills a cup, suggesting a drink while the fish soaks. Kuga eagerly agrees, stating that a post-training drink is the best. Azuma inquires if the master swordsman has a discerning taste for alcohol. Kuga simply grins, admitting he only knows that good sake is enjoyable. Azuma shyly admits he can't handle much alcohol himself. As a chef, he explains, dulling his palate is not an option. Yet he winks, suggesting that everyone needs to unwind sometimes. The straightforward advice resonates with the troubled swordsman. Azuma urges him to set aside his worries and just chill. He confesses he can't provide guidance on something as intricate as swordsmanship. His goal is to help Kuga unwind, allowing his mind to rest. The swordsman listens, realizing that perhaps more training isn't the answer. Azuma's thoughts drift back to his own challenging apprenticeship in Tokyo. He remembers hitting a wall where practice couldn't mend his errors. In those moments of overwhelming frustration, he felt utterly defeated. But his mentor, the head chef, had a unique way of tackling problems. He was advised to pause, enjoy a drink, and sleep on it, a revolutionary method. After that much-needed break, clarity finally returned to his mind. He realized he had been overanalyzing, his anxiety stiffening his hands. He admits the hangover the next day was absolutely dreadful. Yet he smiles, recalling the simple yet profound lesson he learned. Kuga listens closely, the tale of a frustrated cook striking a chord. A slow smile forms as he finally grasps Azuma's message. He confesses he genuinely thought he had hit the ceiling of his talent. Recently, he's struggled against larger foes, a barrier he couldn't breach. The term limit echoes in Azuma's thoughts, a notion he can't accept. He knows Kuga possesses talent, skill, and an unwavering work ethic. He recalls Ganggrave's words about Kuga eventually surpassing them all. Azuma observes the master swordsman finally grasping the depth of his struggle. Azuma's eyes widen, a sudden insight breaking the silence. He tells Kuga not to speak of his limits with such casual resignation. His expression hardens, refusing to accept the swordsman's self-doubt. He explains that Kuga's swordplay is stunning, a flawless arc of movement. He insists this isn't a limit, but merely a barrier that can be overcome. At least, that's how it appears to him, a humble cook watching a master. He knows Kuga isn't ready to give up. That's the mark of true talent. His talent reveals to others the very boundaries of human potential. The swordsman turns back, completely taken aback by the boy's insightful words. A slow smile spreads as he contemplates the idea of a barrier. With their heart-to-heart concluded, Azuma decides it's time to return to cooking. He retrieves the marinated fillet, prepared for the final crucial steps. First, he gently pats the fish dry to achieve a perfectly crispy coating. The basic seasoning of salt, pepper, and ginger has already worked wonders. Next, he prepares the egg wash, the base for the upcoming breading. In a surprising twist, he flash fries Sancho leaves to flavor the oil. The aromatic leaves are crushed and blended into a tray of breadcrumbs. He coats the fish in a light batter before pressing it into the seasoned crumbs. It hits the hot oil, fried with a precision that borders on obsessive. Finally, he presents the completed dish, a golden brown aji fry ready to be enjoyed. Kuga admits that while it's clearly fried, he's never seen fish look so appetizing. Azuma mentions he's spiced things up a bit for the swordsman. Without hesitation, the master swordsman takes a bold bite. A slow grin spreads as he savors each chew. He proclaims it's amazing, a flawless mix of crispy, fluffy, and savory. In mere moments, the plate is completely wiped clean. He leans back, praising Azuma's remarkable knife skills. Azuma beams, acknowledging that knife technique is crucial in cooking. The swordsman inquires for an example, his interest fully ignited. Azuma explains that rough cuts harm the fish, so he applies a gentle touch. The swordsman echoes the terms stroke and cut, a simple idea that transforms everything. Just like that, a cooking lesson morphs into a martial arts revelation. Kuga realizes he's been entirely wrong about his swordsmanship approach. Relying solely on brute strength won't suffice. His technique must surpass his physical limits. He starts to connect the dots, forming a new philosophy centered on technique over sheer power. With a triumphant shout, he expresses gratitude to Azuma, claiming he's finally had a breakthrough. Azuma feels pleased to assist, even if he's unsure of what he actually conveyed. Rejuvenated, Kuga urges Azuma to return while he tests his new theory. He needs solitude to capture this sensation, promising he'll be back to normal by dawn. Azuma can only smile, accepting that this is just how a prodigy thinks. The following morning, Kuga is back to his usual self, grinning widely. However, on the battlefield, the enemy is engulfed in utter chaos. Their commander panics, having never anticipated this many mages. Gangrave's troops cheer, recognizing the devastating power of Lil's new explosive stones. But Kuga can only watch as shock spreads across the commander's face, realizing the consequences. His thoughts flash back, reaffirming his identity as Kuga, captain of the 1st Infantry. His pride has always been in leading the charge, cutting down foes at the forefront. His men share that pride, convinced they perform the most vital tasks in the company. Of course, this excludes the well-paid mages, who seem to have it easy. He's always trusted in the strength of his own hands and a dependable blade. He's long believed his skill was his greatest asset, but that hasn't held true lately. And it all began when Lil's talent was finally allowed to flourish. Her explosive stones and timed incendiaries were revolutionary inventions. His own men cheer, thrilled that these new tools will enable them to crush their foes. Yet as Kuga observes his infantry advance, a different thought begins to form. He admits to himself that he genuinely feels happy for his friend's achievements, but he's always taken pride in defeating foes with his own strength. Now, with these new weapons, traditional warfare methods are becoming outdated. He shuts his eyes, unable to accept this new reality. His entire philosophy was shaped in the slums, where a sword was his only possession. He and Gangrave survived the slums by depending on each other's strength. Even as a child, Kuga was incredibly confident in his blade skills. He spent his youth fending off thugs, sharpening his skills in fierce street fights. Gangrave recognized Kuga's unique and exceptional talent even back then. A technique Gangrave struggled to master, Kuga could grasp after just one glance. But now Gangrave is a captain, no longer leading from the front lines. Kuga vowed to be the blade that would carve a path to his friend's aspirations. Yet now that same blade feels dull and burdensome in his grip. He feels an urgent need to prove his own strength, not to be overshadowed by a mere tool. But in the heat of battle, his anxiety causes his sword to falter, betraying his will. He views his talent as an endless staircase, with a peak he can never attain. At the campsite, his anger finally erupted during a fierce dispute. He faces off against one of his own soldiers, who attempts to calm his increasingly irate captain. The soldier proposes they should prioritize utilizing Lil's new weapons rather than just honing their sword skills. Kuga, however, erupts, insisting that a true warrior wields their own blade, not relies on gimmicks. His men counter, arguing that fighting smart and safely is what truly counts. Ignoring their reasoning, Kuga simply turns away and walks off. He can only manage a pained smile, his pride clashing with the harsh truths of the battlefield. For days, he disappears into the woods after each meal, training in solitude. With the next confrontation approaching, he desperately seeks to regain his confidence and sharpen his weapon. He's engaged in a unique form of training, battling a fiery specter of himself. Through intense focus, he conjures an illusory foe from within his own psyche. He's up against the ideal version of himself, the flawless swordsman he aspires to be. The two figures charge at one another, a whirlwind of movement in the shadowy forest. Their blades clash, sending sparks flying, a perfectly matched duel. They lock swords, a brutal contest of strength between a man and his own aspiration. Yet the phantom is quicker, sending Kuga's sword spiraling from his grip. Kuga can only stand in disbelief as the spectral blade presses against his throat. The illusion follows up with a fierce kick, completely shattering his stance. As the phantom fades away, Kuga is left alone, grappling with his crushing defeat. His grip tightens around the hilt. He realizes this approach isn't effective. He stands there, defeated, acknowledging that his troubled mind has dulled his edge. The swordsman is engulfed in a silent tempest of frustration and uncertainty. He searches for the root of his struggle, questioning why his sword feels so burdensome. He thinks of his men, who now depend on small stones to regain their pride as infantry. But he halts, a new realization slicing through his pride. He comes to understand that his initial judgment may not be entirely correct. After all, why should he hesitate when a tool can easily overcome the enemy? His true dread isn't about losing pride, but about his friends perishing when those tools run dry. He envisions a comrade's last moments, yearning for just one more stone to survive. He knows that if his men can't depend on their own strength, survival is unlikely. Kuga fears not death in battle, but dying with regrets. He pledges to demonstrate that ultimately their own skills are what truly matter. Yet his solitary training is about to be interrupted by a rather lost-looking cook. His concentration is unwavering, his mind entirely absorbed by the blade. He senses a presence, turning to face the intruder in his secluded space. It's Azuma, holding a lantern and looking quite out of place in the dark woods. The swordsman's tension dissipates as he recognizes the new chef of the company. He remembers the young man who joined their ranks merely a month ago, the same kid who has already managed to uplift the entire company's spirits. The soldiers agree that thanks to Azuma, mealtimes have become something to anticipate. However, Kuga admits to himself that he remains somewhat unconvinced. he can't shake his deep-rooted skepticism regarding the enigmatic young chef. He still doesn't grasp how Azuma just appeared out of nowhere that day in Rimball. His cooking is unlike anything they've encountered, and no one knows where he learned it. The dishes themselves are a complete enigma, a taste from another realm, but in the present moment, he decides to keep those doubts to himself for now. His expression is so grim it could make our boy burst into tears, somewhat dramatic. After all, Azuma is merely concerned about the swordsman vanishing into the woods alone each night. Thus, he ventured out, determined to locate the troubled prodigy. Azuma confesses he came out here on pure impulse without a second thought. He followed his instincts, lantern in hand, venturing into the shadowy woods. Kuga comes to the realization that he was so absorbed in his thoughts, he overlooked Izuma's worry. He gazes at the young chef, acknowledging that in many respects he's still quite immature. The two share a moment, and Kuga finally admits he's in a significant rut. After all this time, he thinks maybe discussing it will actually be beneficial. He articulates that while tools matter, a warrior must depend on their own might. Yet his grip on the hilt tightens, his sword pales in comparison to Lil's new armaments. He strives to maintain composure, trying to express his feelings without faltering. He tells Azuma he must be stronger, quicker, and superior to any weapon. His worries keep stacking up, overwhelming his mind. Azuma listens as Kuga confesses that the moment he felt that weight, his blade dulled. In that moment of raw honesty, the swordsman reached a crushing realization. He was weak. Impatience grew within him as he watched his peers thrive while he lagged behind. He felt miserable, envious of Lil's remarkable achievements while he remained stagnant. As he spiraled deeper, Azuma offered an unexpected nugget of wisdom. With a charming grin, he simply asks the master swordsman if he's feeling hungry. The question completely derails Kuga's thoughts, leaving him utterly at a loss. And somehow, with that single inquiry, Azuma was on the verge of resolving all of Kuga's issues. He ties on his apron, prepared to let his culinary skills speak for themselves. Kuga is utterly perplexed, questioning if Azuma sees him as just a famished child. Yet he acknowledges that even Gangrave couldn't have devised such a solution. Suddenly all his concerns felt trivial, almost meaningless in the face of a good meal. He wonders if this is yet another of Azuma's peculiar disarming talents. But as he observes, he's captivated by the chef's confident, practiced motions. Azuma's knife glides with such accuracy, resembling a legendary blade rather than a mere tool. Kuga's mind races, analyzing each slice, sensing a hidden lesson in the fluidity. Azuma places the seasoned fillets into the magical cooler to rest. He turns to the swordsman, explaining that now they simply need to wait. To pass the time, Azuma offers the swordsman a bottle of sake, always the right choice. Azuma admits he can't provide advice, but he wants to assist Kuga in clearing his mind. The swordsman ponders this. The notion of relaxation strikes him in a new light. Kuga realizes that for a mere cook, Azuma is surprisingly astute. Azuma smiles, fully aware of what it feels like to hit a wall in one's craft. Kuga feels a twinge of guilt for ever doubting this kid. Azuma's innocent smile is almost overwhelming for the hardened warrior's conscience. He recognizes that Azuma carries his own burdens, yet still strives to help others. The kid has already gained Gangrave's trust and even befriended the fiery Lil. He's just a kind, ordinary soul, a non-combatant in a world rife with conflict. And yet, this unremarkable boy is about to tackle a problem Kuga thought was insurmountable. Kuga looks down, confessing he lacks the physical attributes for swordsmanship. He believes he possesses no natural talent, no ideal physique for a true warrior. But despite this, he trained tirelessly to conquer his own limitations. That relentless effort became the cornerstone of his pride as a swordsman, and now he feels he has finally hit his absolute ceiling. But Azuma refuses to let him easily dismiss his own potential. He tells Kuga that his swordplay is beautiful, and this is merely a barrier to overcome. The straightforward, sincere words from the young cook resonate deeply. Kuga reflects on his past, a life spent vanquishing countless adversaries. He realizes Azuma is correct. His exquisite sword isn't broken, it's just hit a temporary barrier. Kuga falls silent, the weight of Azuma's simple insight settling in. He chooses to see the boy's viewpoint, viewing his dilemma as a barrier. If his sword has truly struck a barrier, there must be a method to shatter it. The solution isn't a different weapon, but rather something he's neglected within himself. Yet Azuma cuts in, declaring it's time for the main event. With the serious discussion wrapped up, he returns to his true talent. He serves up the completed dish, a flawlessly cooked aji fry for the swordsman. The first taste hits, and Kuga's entire world is shaken by the flavor. The judgment arrives in a single, silent, explosive thought. He is amazed. The crunchy outside yields to a soft interior, a perfect mix of savory tastes. The spicy Sancho pepper slices through the rich sauce, creating a perfect match. Kuga leans back, acknowledging that Azuma's knife skills are truly exceptional. Azuma reveals his secret. For delicate items, you don't just slice, you gently glide the blade. The terms stroke and cut resonate in Kuga's mind, a simple idea that transforms everything. He realizes his entire approach was based on overpowering stronger opponents with size. But he was mistaken. He possesses something far more valuable than brute force, his swordsmanship. Through numerous battles, he has already developed techniques that don't depend on sheer strength. With a victorious shout, he expresses gratitude to Azuma, claiming he's finally had a breakthrough. Rejuvenated, he instructs Azuma to return while he tests his new theory. He finally grasps that he had been swinging with his arm, not his skill. He shuts his eyes, concentrating on a new principle, swinging with his whole body. Power surges from his legs, through his core, and into his arms. But it's not merely muscle. He must engage his entire skeletal structure. He needs to comprehend the tension, the weight, and the center of balance. Every action must be exact, every bit of force meticulously calculated. His eyes snap open, a new level of comprehension dawning upon him. The spectral version of himself reappears, testing his new theory. It's the perfect swordsman he has been pursuing, a phantom of his own making. Their blades collide in a burst of sparks, a clash of reality and ambition. But the phantom's blade is distinct, a reflection of his past flawed beliefs. This time, Kuga confronts the phantom's blade with unwavering determination. His eyes widen as he senses the difference, the flow of genuine power. With a single fluid motion, he executes a strike of incredible speed. The phantom's ideal form shatters under the impact of this new technique. He grits his teeth, channeling every fiber of his being into the swing. The impact reverberates through his entire arm, a testament to his breakthrough. In fact, the force is so tremendous that the sword is wrenched from his grip. He gazes at his trembling hand, realizing the shockwave exceeded his control. He can only watch in stunned silence, his mind spinning from the spectacle. His sword, now liberated, has embedded itself deep into a massive tree. A slow, relieved chuckle escapes Kuga as the realization dawns. He understands now it was never a limitation, just a barrier waiting to be breached. And so, throughout the night, he swung his sword without pause. In a single night, he felt he had advanced 10 steps stronger, not just one. He trained until dawn, refining his newfound insight. The following morning, Azuma delivers a lengthy, stern lecture for his antics. All while keeping a perfectly calm and gentle smile, of course. Kuga realizes that their quiet kindness can be genuinely intimidating. With the scolding finished, Azuma inquires if his issue is finally resolved. Kuga beams, acknowledging that it's all thanks to him. The enemy cavalry charges across the battlefield, a surge of steel and wrath. Ganggrave's soldiers quickly notice Lil's new explosive stones being prepared. Before they can react, Kuga charges into battle, taking on the entire army solo. His own troops can only watch, stunned by their captain's reckless decision. One soldier yells for him to halt, labeling his solo assault as sheer madness. Kuga's resolve is firm. He finally grasps what he must do. As enemy archers get ready to shoot, he remembers the dual aspects of his sword. He leaps high, a solitary figure against a sea of foes. A barrage of arrows fills the air, a death sentence for any ordinary man. Yet, with his new soft sword technique, he deflects every single arrow. He lands unscathed, surrounded by a forest of arrows he has turned aside. His men can only gawk, jaws dropped at the unbelievable sight. With the arrows handled, he now confronts the oncoming cavalry. It's time to unleash his other technique, the hard sword of sheer might. With a single crushing blow, he cleaves through both horse and rider. He carves a path through the enemy ranks, a tempest of steel and rage. He explains that his speed stems from a tranquil mind and relentless training. Surrounded, he moves with an effortless, lethal elegance. His comrades realize his abilities have reached an entirely new level. Even Kuga seems taken aback by the immense power he now wields. He transforms into a one-man army, a storm of destruction slicing through foes. His men watch in awe, realizing they never knew their captain possessed such strength. That night, the camp erupts in jubilant cheers, celebrating their resounding victory. The soldiers raise their cups. proclaiming the win was all due to Captain Kuga's remarkable display. His men now regard him with newfound respect, offering him the first serving of food. The very soldiers who once argued with him now bow in remorse for their earlier disrespect. One humbly asks if Kuga would consider teaching them his sword techniques. Kuga is slightly surprised by their sudden complete shift in attitude. He closes his eyes, pondering their sincere, albeit somewhat shameless, request. With a gentle smile, he quietly consents, ready to guide his men onward. History would remember Kuga not merely as a warrior, but as a legend. When the unified kingdom was established, countless martial arts emerged from the fires of war. Yet, after a decade of peace, only two styles endured, one created by the hero Kuga Yanagi. When his blade was unleashed, it left a scene of utter devastation in its wake. Legends tell of a blood garden where the very earth was tainted by his blade. This was the true testament to Kuga Yanagi's extraordinary power. Despite his rank as a general, he always fought on the front lines, leading by example. His bravery inspired his men and earned him the profound respect of his peers. Years later, he would reflect on those harsh days of conflict. He would acknowledge that behind him lay nothing but a trail of corpses. He would confess it was Azuma who helped him discover his true purpose. Behind him stood the lives of tens of thousands of his comrades, and that is why he would always fight at the very forefront of battle. He would be the first shield, the initial blade to confront the enemy. This philosophy became known as the life-giving sword, a blade that saves many by taking one or suppresses without killing. His legend grew, immortalized in tales, plays, and even statues. In his later years, he retired to a peaceful life of fishing and drinking with old friends. And on those tranquil days, he would always enjoy his favorite dish, aji-free, a simple meal that reminded him of the boy who transformed his entire life. Back at camp, the soldiers revel in their victory with a feast of aji-free. The tranquility of the camp sharply contrasts with the harshness of the battlefield. Out of nowhere, the enemy strikes back, catching them completely unprepared. A soldier yells for Azuma to find safety, reasonable advice for someone holding a pot. Yet Azuma stands firm, declaring that he and his team will provide support. His eyes widen as he comprehends the magnitude of the enemy's onslaught. He notices the enemy has deployed their own formidable mage unit. A powerful sorceress begins her incantation, amassing a frightening amount of energy. She releases a wave of black flames, incinerating the front line in an instant. Azuma can only watch in horror, realizing the true destructive force of magic. The scene transitions to a vast forest blanketed in snow, a serene cover over the land. Time has elapsed since the last fierce battle, chaos yielding to a chilling calm. Seasons have changed, and a brutal winter has taken hold. In the camp, soldiers huddle together for warmth, the victory feeling far away. Azuma ponders his time here, still feeling like an outsider in this unfamiliar land. The narrative catches up with the Gangrave Mercenary Company and their recent fortunes. Their triumph in the Salt Rights War has filled their coffers with gold. A soldier reminisces about Gangrave's excitement, planning to bolster their ranks. However, Gangrave tells Azuma that new recruits are still a long way off, leaving him as the sole cook. The captain adds he's reluctant to share Azuma's cooking secrets, leaving him utterly shocked. The company's next mission leads them to the icy north, fighting for valuable mineral rights. It seems that throughout history, humanity will always battle for essential resources. Azuma shivers in the frigid air, a stark contrast to the warmth of his kitchen. He spots Lil nearby, offering a friendly greeting against the winter chill. To his horror, he discovers the mage engineer has turned into a literal ice statue. He quickly offers her a warm drink, hoping to prevent her from shattering. The warmth envelops her instantly, relief washing over her face. He explains it's a special concoction he created called amazake, a sweet warm sake. Lil takes another sip, the comforting heat driving away the last remnants of cold. She comments on its sweetness, surprised that it doesn't taste like alcohol. Azuma clarifies that while it's sweet, it is still technically sake, so she should pace herself. He explains it's made from saklis, a byproduct of the brewing process. Arlius, the second in command, mentions this world has its own version of sake, which she had to ask Gangrave to get. Azuma admits he was reluctant to serve alcohol, not wanting the soldiers intoxicated during emergencies. However, he thought a small amount would be ideal for warming them in this bitter cold. Lil, on the other hand, seems to have ignored the small amount guideline and is gulping it down eagerly. Azuma can only watch, pleased that she enjoys his creation so much. familiar face appears as Tag, the young soldier, asks if he can join in. It turns out Tag isn't just any soldier, he's the captain of the archers. Despite his rank, he's known for his easygoing demeanor and goofy grin. A bit of a jokester. He's not intimidating, rather he's recognized for his friendly and approachable nature. He's seen as a big brother figure, someone his soldiers can easily confide in. Azuma smiles, letting the archer captain know there's a cup waiting for him too. Tag doesn't hesitate, eagerly accepting the offer. He takes a long sip. The warm Amazok provides relief from the biting cold. A look of pure bliss spreads across his face. It's warm, sweet, and utterly delightful. But Azuma quickly reminds him that it's still alcohol, so he can only have one cup. Azuma promises to whip up more after the battle, a deal Tag eagerly agrees to. However, Lil has other priorities, insisting Azuma make her some hamburger steaks first. Tag is completely taken aback, reminding her she devoured a mountain of them last time. Lil enters a state of pure zen, humming a simple ode to hamburger steaks. With fervent conviction, she proclaims that hamburger steaks are delightful any day of the week. Tag inquires about Azuma's well-being, noticing the slightly unsettling expression in her eyes. Azuma can only respond with a flat expression as Lil's obsession with hamburgers escalates. Meanwhile, Gangrave and the leadership team savor their own steaming beverages. Arlias observes that even their usually stoic captain seems to relish the amazashi. However, Azuma prepared a special non-alcoholic version for the captain using rice koji. Acquiring the koji was no easy feat, but it meant he could keep his prized Sackleys. Arlias points out that their foes are unaccustomed to battling in the snow, giving them an edge. Yet the remark seems to trigger a thought in Azuma, leaving him in contemplation. But Arlias notes that one of the captains is staring directly at them. Her gaze is unwavering, a silent and inscrutable judgment from across the camp. Azuma highlights the leadership meeting, questioning why Tag is absent. Tag appears taken aback, asking if he's truly permitted to skip it. He confesses that he's not particularly skilled at thinking, leaving it all to Gangrave. Azuma can only process this unconventional take on leadership. Lil interjects that she operates similarly, and Azuma feels a twinge of sympathy for their captain. Meanwhile, the rest of the leadership team continues to glare in silent disapproval. Soon, an officer announces the meeting's outcome. They'll take a break today. The company will commence their advance tomorrow, a brief pause before the next conflict. With the meal finished, Azuma faces the less glamorous side of his duties. He scrubs the dishes in the frigid cold, his hands numbed by the icy water. He admits that on a day like this, even mundane tasks feel monumental. But his solitary work is interrupted by Arlias, who requests a moment of his attention. The second-in-command's gaze is as piercing and frigid as the winter air surrounding them. Azuma discovers that she's not merely an officer, but a specialist leading the mage unit. The narrative clarifies that while Lil's abilities directly affect physical matter, she recalls her distinctive hands-on method of blacksmithing. In contrast, Arlias's powers revolve around manipulating natural elements. She showcases this ability conjuring a flame in her palm. She can unleash enormous fireballs, incinerating foes without a trace of mercy. And this formidable mage, Arlias, is also regarded as an unmatched beauty. Azuma can't help but be captivated by her breathtaking, almost ethereal grace. He imagines that if she were in his world, she'd be an instant sensation, a pop idol scouted on the spot. But his admiration is abruptly interrupted by a glaring realization. He repeats the thought to ensure he's processing it accurately. Yes, despite her beauty, our boy's final dramatic conclusion is clear, but he quickly clarifies that he firmly believes in the flat is justice philosophy. Azuma finally asks Arlias why she chose to speak with him at this moment. He's fairly certain she hasn't been his biggest supporter until now. Arlias's expression remains as cold and inscrutable as the winter snow. He points out that since his arrival, she's shown no interest in him whatsoever. While he's familiar with her subordinates, she's maintained a professional distance. He's friendly with the other mages, but Arlias always seems to be walking away. And whenever she glances his way, her gaze is sharp and calculating. He's noticed her almost constant focus on his arm, which is definitely not strange at all. The intensity of her stare is more than a little unsettling for our boy. He figures that in her eyes, he's still just a suspicious newcomer with a mysterious past. But Arlias finally breaks her silence, admitting she has something to talk about. Nervously, she fidgets, her fingers tapping together in an odd rhythm. The stoic mage captain suddenly turns red, unable to hold his gaze. Azuma is utterly perplexed by her unexpected, unusually bashful behavior. Words escape her as she struggles. Her usual self-assurance vanished. Then she blurts it out. She wants Azuma to teach her cooking. Our boy is taken aback, questioning why a powerful mage captain needs cooking lessons. But as he reflects, the pieces of the puzzle start to align. The truth dawns on him. Arlias is hopelessly in love with Gangrave. It's a secret revealed only through the radiant smile she saves for him. In fact, it's a well-known secret that the entire team wholeheartedly supports. She tries to conceal it, but her blushing smile betrays her. Tag is completely bewildered that Gangrave is the only one oblivious. Azuma, ever the professional, inquires about her previous cooking experience. Arlias sheepishly confesses she has none, which isn't a great start. Azuma explains that teaching her won't be straightforward, much to her dismay. He shuts his eyes, stating there's no quick fix to becoming a skilled cook. Yet he's curious, asking why she's suddenly so eager to learn. She pleads for him to keep this under wraps, and Azuma promises to stay silent. Taking a deep breath, the powerful mage prepares to reveal her true motivation. With a blush that could melt ice, she finally confesses her love for Gangrave. Azuma's inner thoughts are simple. Yeah, the whole team is aware. But witnessing this romantic confession stirs an odd, murderous feeling in him. Arlias explains she's noticed how much Gangrave enjoys Azuma's cooking. As she observed, she admits to feeling a sharp pang of jealousy. The confession leaves Azuma completely stunned and a bit perplexed. His mind races to a bizarre thought. Does she think he's stealing her man? He quickly brushes off the idea, his face a mask of flustered panic. Arlias believes that if she could cook, Gangrave might finally notice her. She wants to contribute, feeling useless despite always being by his side. Azuma listens intently, his expression unreadable as he absorbs her heartfelt request. She explains her desire to be useful to the one she loves, to truly support him. He reevaluates his first impression. She seemed cold, but now he sees her passion. As he contemplates, a new perspective begins to form in his mind. Arlias reminds him that everyone has their own battlefield, their own fight. Azuma agrees, stating his battlefield is the kitchen, while hers is the real battlefield. He suggests that if she truly wants to assist Gangrave, she should fight where she's strongest. The powerful mage listens, his words striking her with unexpected impact. He clarifies that he's willing to teach her, but he has one condition. In his eyes, Arlias is and will always be a warrior. He reminds her that with her unique magical talent, she's the team's deadliest asset. She questions why he's suddenly trying to define her role, to box her in. But her confident facade falters, a moment of silent hesitation taking hold. Finally, she admits the truth. She's been in a serious slump lately. Azuma is taken aback, realizing this mirrors Kuga's recent struggles. She explains that despite her training, her power and control have plateaued. She believes she's hit the absolute limit of her own abilities. That's why she sought another way to be of use to Gangrave. Azuma covers his mouth, a contemplative look crossing his face as he processes her words. He concedes that yes, she could likely learn the art of cooking. He understands her desire to acquire new skills because she feels inadequate. Yet he won't even consider the possibility of her reaching her talent's limits. He points out that even with his guidance, mastering cooking would take her months. The stark truth of that timeline leaves the mighty mage utterly speechless. However, Azuma proposes a different kind of help, advice on matters of the heart. The suggestion leaves Arlia completely perplexed. But as the meaning dawns on her, she seizes him, questioning his seriousness. Now visibly flustered, Azuma asks if she's ever dined alone with Gangrave. The mere thought sends the powerful mage into a flustered, blushing panic. She shyly admits that no, she's never had that opportunity. Azuma vows to create the ideal moment for them. He'll whip up a special meal to help deepen their bond. Arlias is thrilled, questioning if such a magical dish can truly exist. He reveals he'll prepare a nostalgic dish from his homeland for them. However, her excitement wanes when he clarifies he'll be joining them. Thus, beneath the cold gaze of the northern peaks, the plan is established. Gangrave shows up, inquiring if he's been invited to a dinner gathering. The captain appears slightly flustered by the intimate atmosphere. Azuma affirms it, standing in front of a tent set up for the special meal. With a professional grin, he invites his guests to take their seats. The table is arranged, a bubbling pot at his center creating a cozy vibe. The meal kicks off with a simple kombu broth, a taste of Azuma's homeland. He mentions that Lil even crafted the furniture to create the perfect ambiance. He's also prepared a special ponzu sauce, a mix of familiar flavors. With a confident grin, Azuma announces that the meal is about to commence. The captain is taken aback, realizing this will be a cooking experience at the table. But Arlia's fierce glare indicates she's not pleased about the extra company. Her mind races with scenarios that definitely aren't part of the plan. He tosses cubes of tofu into the bubbling broth, the next step in his plan. He presents the simple yet elegant dish, yudefu, a comforting winter meal. He explains he sourced the high-quality kombu when they were near the coast. The quality is superb, ideal for crafting a rich, flavorful dashi. The tofu is freshly made, a challenging process involving soybeans and a coagulant. He even made the coagulant himself using a traditional method from his world. The entire process started with collecting fresh seawater from the coast. Naturally, he had to ask Lil to create the necessary tools for the task, a job she took on with her usual slightly weary enthusiasm. It was a lengthy process of trial and error, requiring precise temperature control. All this effort just so he could be roped into making more hamburger steaks for Lil. The final dish appears simple, but the preparation was a true labor of love. Gangray and Arlia stare at the unpretentious dish, questioning if this is really the full meal. Azuma clarifies that while other ingredients could be added, simplicity is key for this occasion. He adds that it's the ideal meal for a chilly day, warming them from within. Gangrave smiles, admitting he's eager for it, and asks if Azuma will serve them. But Azuma clarifies that while he'll help, the main task will fall to the two of them. He hands them a special slotted spoon, a tool made for this very purpose. He explains the true essence of a hot pot, a shared meal for family and close friends. The implication strikes Arlias like a bolt of lightning. Azuma gives her a knowing wink. The stage is set for her. With a determined blush, Arlias turns to Gangrave and offers to serve him herself. Gangrave beams warmly, gladly accepting her offer to serve him. Arlias, with unwavering concentration, serves the captain his initial bowl. Yet Gangrave, always the courteous one, insists on returning the favor. This small act sends the formidable mage into a flustered state. They share a quiet, intimate moment, the atmosphere heavy with unexpressed emotions. Azuma observes, pleased that his culinary matchmaking is unfolding perfectly. He clarifies that sharing a hot pot is intended to strengthen connections. However, Gangrave learns a different lesson when the hot tofu burns his mouth. Azuma quickly cautions him that the dish stays hot, an experience learned the hard way. The captain takes a moment to let his food cool, a brief respite from the romantic tension. With some practice, Gangrave finally takes his first bite of the plain tofu. The flavor hits him like a wave, pure and unfiltered bliss. He can only manage a single word, softly declaring it delicious. He notes the texture, how the tofu is both perfectly warm and incredibly soft. The sour, savory dipping sauce complements it perfectly. The ponzu sauce is a work of art, a rich and intricate mix of flavors. He admits he thought it was merely boiled tofu, yet it warms him completely. Arlias is equally astonished, unable to fathom how such a simple dish could be so impactful. Azuma watches them, satisfied to see his guests relishing the meal. He explains that yudefu is ideal for chilly days, warming them from within. Azuma then introduces a special topping for the dish. Gangrave inquires about it, and Azuma describes it as a magical seasoning to enhance the flavor. The captain samples a small taste, his curiosity piqued. He identifies the blend of sour and spicy, recognizing it as chili. He then presents additional toppings, green onions, and grated daikon. Arlias adds the toppings, noting how they elevate the dish. Seeing her delight, Gangrave decides he must try it too. Arlias offers him the chili, a small yet intimate gesture. Azuma observes, a proud culinary cupid admiring his handiwork. The gap between them finally narrows, a shared meal breaking down barriers. Azuma senses they just need one final gentle nudge to progress. He turns to Gangrave, asking what he thinks the dish would lack without the kombu. The captain assumes it would taste nearly the same, a simple yet incorrect belief. But Azuma clarifies that the flavor would be drastically and fundamentally altered. He launches into a full chemistry lesson on how umami functions. He explains that without that foundational flavor, the dish and their conversation would be bland. Arlias picks up on the metaphor, asking Gangrave who adds flavor to his life. Azuma continues, describing someone who is always by the captain's side. He questions if there isn't a cherished person who worries for him, practically spelling it out. In that moment, something finally clicks for Gangrave. Gangrave's eyes widen, a blush creeping across his face as he connects the dots. Arlias can only gaze back, her own blush deepening at his sudden realization. She offers a soft, shy confirmation, her feelings finally laid bare. Azuma peeks out from the tent, announcing his work is complete. Time for the third wheel to exit gracefully. He pats himself on the back, quite pleased with his first attempt at culinary matchmaking. Yet he wonders when Cupid will ever return the favor for him. Unlikely at this rate. His thoughts are interrupted by a familiar voice calling from behind. Azuma freezes, panic washing over him as he realizes he's been discovered. It's the entire leadership team, curious about what their captain is doing in a private dining tent. It doesn't take them long to figure out exactly what's happening. Azuma asks if they're all just here to be nosy spectators. A woman with feline ears admits this is too captivating to overlook. Kaguya beams, expressing her concern for them and her joy in watching. Tag, the sensible one, suggests it's probably time to leave, yet Kuga insists on seeing this through. What a flimsy excuse. Lil simply grins, stating she doesn't really have a preference. The cat-eared woman calls her out, reminding her she deemed this essential. Even the quiet giant, Orthros, appears to be pondering the situation. Azuma realizes he should intervene, but sees no malice in their actions. Years of camaraderie have made them all deeply invested in each other's joy. Azuma winks, declaring he'll make a break for it to avoid being a distraction. The other officers cheer, vowing not to let him ruin the moment. The scene fades, with the silent snowy peaks bearing witness to the night. The next morning, Azuma shivers in the biting cold, his hands quaking. But a warm voice cuts through the chill as Arlias greets him warmly. He looks up to find her, radiating happiness as if glowing. A bright, content smile has replaced her usual stoic demeanor. Azuma can only strike a pose, proclaiming she's shining like a goddess. His words seem to fluster her, and she briefly looks away. However, she turns back, sincerely thanking him for aiding her confession. Azuma smiles, pleased to see his plan has unfolded perfectly. But her next words send a shockwave of disbelief through him. His mind races, picturing a very successful night for the new couple. Yet Arlias clarifies they've only promised to marry once they settle down. A promise that's swiftly followed by a punch to Azuma's face. The powerful mage unleashes a barrage of blows, demanding to know his thoughts. He apologizes for his impure thoughts, leaving her flustered. With a bruised cheek, he reassures her, accepting her gratitude nonetheless. He confirms their plan. They'll marry once they find a place to call home. But for a wandering mercenary group, finding a permanent home is no easy feat. Still, Arlias believes that with this team, they can realize that dream. Azuma feels happy for them, but a part of him wishes these couples would just vanish. After their heartfelt exchange, they part ways with newfound understanding. He even found himself explaining the intricate chemistry behind his simple tofu dish. In the ensuing battle, Arlias was said to be utterly unstoppable. It was as if she unleashed a second sun on the battlefield, a terrifying display. But amidst their victorious chaos, Gangrave fell, a spear piercing his chest. The retreat is a blur of panic as they call for Kaguya, desperate to staunch the bleeding. He weakly inquires about the enemy, and Arlias reassures him they managed to escape. Tears of relief stream down her cheeks as she confirms they've all survived for now. Gangrave can only muster a weak, quiet acknowledgement of their survival. Arlias watches him, her thoughts drifting back to the man she cherishes. She remembers their harsh past as orphans and how he always shielded them. He bore all their burdens, taking on their sins so they could live guilt-free. All she ever desired was to stand by his side and help shoulder that weight. In moments like this, she realized her feelings had blossomed into love. Soon after, they would establish the mercenary company together. Her feelings always became clearest when he was on the brink of death. This battle was among their worst, a desperate struggle to cover a retreat. The retreat succeeded, but it came at a heartbreaking cost. Gangrave lay on the edge of death, his body battered and bandaged. The whole group was engulfed in self-reproach, feeling they had let him down. Yet Gangrave simply beamed, thankful just to be alive. In that instant, Arlias' heart revealed a simple, undeniable fact. She was in love. The realization struck her like one of her own fireballs. It was his smile, even when facing death, that finally brought clarity. She is Arlias, the formidable leader of the mage unit in the Gangrave Mercenary Company. On the battlefield, a mage transcends mere soldier status. They are a weapon of great might. They unleash fire upon foes, deflect arrows with ice barriers, and slice enemies with wind blades. Arlias describes her unique skill, the power to transform her magic into any material she wishes. The world is filled with regular folks, but only a few can harness magic. The odds are daunting. Only 1 in 100,000 can even touch magic, and fewer can wield it effectively. Yet the Gang Rave Mercenary Company boasts 4 of these exceptional talents. This is what makes their company so formidable, a small yet powerful force on the battlefield. However, in this realm, magical ability comes with a steep cost. Arlias has always found it challenging to persuade her team to accept their modest wages. She has had to weigh their loyalty against the ongoing pressure on their finances. Recently, though, she has noticed an unexpected shift in her unit's spirits. Complaints about their low wages have completely disappeared. The source of this newfound joy is, of course, Azuma Shuri. His cooking is so exceptional that the mages agree it makes their meager pay worthwhile. With Azuma's meals to satisfy them, they've even stopped dining out. It's a financial choice that the entire team has cheerfully embraced. Arlias realizes that without Azuma joining her squad, the whole unit might have crumbled by now. But for now, their attention is on the upcoming battle in the harsh, snowy plains. Later, Arlias peeks into a tent, interrupting her subordinate's meal. Her expression shifts from professional curiosity to sheer shock. She recognizes the sweet scent wafting from their cups. Sake. She erupts, demanding to know why they're drinking on duty right before a fight. The mage is caught, completely exposed by their furious captain, but one of them calmly clarifies it's just the Amazaki Azuma made for everyone. They rave about its sweet flavor, noting how it warms them and benefits their skin. They conclude that Azuma is more than a cook. He's practically a sorcerer. Arlias can only facepalm, realizing her entire unit has been charmed by a single chef. She sighs, acknowledging that since Azuma's arrival, the whole company has transformed. She reminds them that previously, they would have been grumbling about their wages. But her subordinates merely sip their drinks, a masterclass in passive defiance. Meanwhile, Gangrave has begun concentrating on logistics and food supplies. Inspired by Azuma's expertise, Lil is diligently working on her next major invention. Even Kuga, now a master of his craft, has discovered a new direction. Yet Arlias feels as if she's the only one being left behind. She concedes the food is delightful, but it's a bittersweet realization. The soldiers are content, though they yearn for something stronger to drink. She overhears them praising Azuma's remarkable impact on the company. And Arlias finally admits to herself that she's envious of Azuma Shuri. This boy just appeared out of nowhere and instantly gained Gangrave's trust. His background is a complete enigma, making him deeply suspicious. These thoughts have sparked a resentment she can no longer conceal. Now she fears that Azuma might actually harbor hatred towards her for it. Arlias surveys the bustling camp, her mind clearly troubled by recent events. Her gaze shifts abruptly to Gangrave, who seems to be savoring a drink. The captain leisurely enjoys a long sip from his cup, completely relaxed. A look of sheer bliss spreads across his features. Arlias confronts him right away, questioning why he's drinking instead of preparing. Gangrave simply grins, clarifying that his drink is a special non-alcoholic blend. Her evident frustration and concern remain unaddressed by his explanation. He mentions he turned down the regular sake, knowing he needed to stay alert. Just then, Azuma arrives with the koji-based non-alcoholic drink he made. Gangrave beams, proclaiming the drink is delightful and warms him deeply. Gangrave offers Arlias a cup, turning to her with a smile. She takes a cautious sip, her irritation still bubbling beneath the surface. To her surprise, the flavor is sweet, yet not overwhelming, with only a hint of alcohol. A soothing warmth envelops her, driving away the winter chill from within. The other soldiers nod in agreement, convinced everyone will enjoy this new beverage. Gangrave takes another long drink, embodying pure, simple happiness. Yet Arlias can only bite her lip, a wave of bitterness washing over her. A new voice comments on how Gangrave clearly has a fondness for Azuma. He clarifies that this trust differs from relying on someone in battle. It's about trusting someone enough to let them guard your back as you move forward. She feels envious of Azuma, who stands beside Gangrave during his duties. The boy has effortlessly gained the trust of the one she cherishes most. This realization escapes her lips in a deep, frustrated sigh. She concedes that the Amazaki was delightful with no complaints about the meal. Yet she wonders if she could strengthen her bond with Gangrave through cooking. This thought consumes her, a silent tempest of jealousy and desire. In an instant, a brilliant idea pierces through her frustration. She envisions herself serving a meal, finally finding a way to be of use to him. In her daydream, Gangrave tells her he needs her. What a lovely fantasy. But in reality, she knows she's hit a wall with her magic. This could be a new direction. With renewed determination in her eyes, Arlias decides to act without delay. She spots Azuma by the river, ready to make her significant, life-altering request. However, his quiet concentration leaves her momentarily puzzled, disrupting her momentum. She inquires why he's out here washing dishes alone in the biting cold. After all, Gangrave had just commanded the entire company to rest for tomorrow's battle. While other captains prepare in their own ways, Azuma is stuck with chores. Arlias points out he shouldn't waste his energy on such a trivial task. But Azuma explains he can't ask others to do a job that would numb their hands. So he's taken on the entire company's dishes all by himself. Arlias watches this simple act of selflessness, challenging her view of him. She realizes his hands must be raw and chapped from the icy water. He's responsible for everything, from cooking to the mountain of dishes left behind. As a non-combatant, this is his way of contributing, his own personal battlefield. Even as the company expands, Azuma remains the sole official cook. The other soldiers have noticed, realizing the burden on him is nearly unbearable, and Arlias can only think about how she just eats his food and drinks his sake. She admits to feeling envious of his achievements, but his kindness makes it hard to stay angry. The powerful mage feels pathetic, wanting to curse her own trivial emotions, so she clenches her fists, gathering the courage to finally speak with him. She approaches him, her voice gentle as she requests a moment of his time. Azuma turns to her, slightly flustered by her unexpected presence. She comes to terms with her neglect of his efforts and pledges to finally place her trust in him. His reaction to her request is one of surprise, questioning if she genuinely wishes to learn cooking. She affirms her desire, revealing it's for Gangrave's benefit. However, Azuma's reply is far from what she anticipated. He clarifies that everyone has their unique battlefield where they excel. His candid remarks resonate deeply, hitting her with unexpected intensity. She realizes that her conversations with him lack any ulterior motives or deceit. Finally, she grasps that he is simply a genuinely kind individual, and she had been blind to it. But our boy's noble musings are quickly interrupted by a classic nosebleed. As he wipes the blood away, Azuma confesses he was aware of her secret all along. His blunt honesty makes it easier for her to admit her other issue. She's in a slump. She acknowledges that his sincere demeanor made her feel secure enough to share her vulnerability. Despite her rigorous training, she feels no tangible progress in her abilities. Her control has begun to falter in battle, and she fears she can no longer aid Gangrave. Azuma concedes that magic is entirely outside his realm of knowledge. The formidable mage looks down, his words providing little solace. Yet he smiles, stating that while he can't assist with magic, he can certainly help with matters of the heart. The abrupt change in subject leaves the powerful mage utterly perplexed. Thus, Azuma unveils his grand culinary scheme to assist her. He proposes a special dinner just for her and Gangrave. It's a daring move since Gangrave has always insisted on dining with the entire group. Consequently, Azuma swiftly and systematically begins to create a romantic atmosphere. Arlias is taken aback by how seriously he's treating her love life. He even enlists Lil, who agrees, thinking he's a rare type of meddler. The dish is yudufu, a simple meal meant for sharing among close friends. A dish that transcends mere ingredients. As they enjoy the meal, they resemble less like comrades and more like a married couple. Yet the unpretentious meal boasts an unexpectedly rich flavor. She's amazed that despite its simplicity, the dish is incredibly tasty. Overwhelmed by the experience, warmth radiates throughout her body. But the true highlight is the remarkable ponzu sauce. It enhances the tofu's natural sweetness, elevating the entire dish. With toppings like chili and daikon, the simple meal unveils a new allure. She realizes this is the ultimate comfort food for a chilly winter day. As they share the meal, their conversation flows effortlessly. For a brief moment, they forget they're on a battlefield, lost in their own bubble. Azuma observes, knowing he's provided them the final nudge they required. Arlias gazes at him, hoping her feelings will finally be acknowledged. And as he utters her name, she realizes her message has finally been understood. Arlias shuts her eyes, tears of joy streaming down her cheeks as years of unexpressed feelings are finally reciprocated. From the tent flap, our boy Azuma senses his mission here is complete. But inside the tent, Gangrave claps his hands, a serious gesture that pierces the romantic atmosphere. He takes her hands, his gaze unwavering as he asks her to pay attention. With an expression of pure, unwavering sincerity, he finally confesses his love for her as well. Arlias is overwhelmed, proclaiming this the happiest day of her life. Yet Gangrave's demeanor shifts, admitting that despite his feelings, they can't be together just yet. The sudden change leaves the powerful mage utterly shocked, her joy morphing into confusion. He outlines the harsh truth of their existence. Tomorrow, he could easily perish in battle. And it's not just tomorrow. Each day is a struggle for survival with no promise of a future. He explains that in their profession, he never knows which day might be his last. Overwhelmed, Arlias bolts, pleading for him to halt. Yet Gangrave grips her wrist, unwilling to let her go just yet. He draws her in, sharing that despite the risks, he has a vision. Amidst her tears, she recalls his ultimate ambition to create a nation. It's a vow Gangrave has repeated countless times. A land where hunger is non-existent and peace reigns for all. He promises that until that dream comes true, he won't give up. Thus, he urges her to wait until he has crafted that future. He requests to be the one to propose when that day finally arrives. Arlias is utterly taken aback by his sincere long-term proposal. Through joyful tears, she calls him a coward for making her wait. She questions if she can genuinely trust his promise, her heart at stake. He pledges to become a man deserving of her before he claims the throne. With that vow, they finally share their first kiss. He tells her this promise is the best he can offer for now. Arlias can only nod, accepting his promise with a tearful grin. But their sweet moment is interrupted as the leadership team bursts in. Arlias is mortified. Her private confession has become a public affair. Gangrave is equally shocked, realizing their friends have no regard for privacy. Lil breaks the silence first, cheerfully congratulating them. The cat-eared woman winks, teasing that it's about time they got together. Tag joins in, joking about how heated the situation has become. Kaguya offers a more heartfelt congratulations, her smile gentle. Even the quiet giant Orthros gives his silent, helmeted approval. The other mages chime in, thrilled for their flustered captain. The new couple stands there, completely flustered by their invested audience. Arlias hides her face, overwhelmed by the public display of affection. The teasing continues, a relentless yet good-natured ribbing from friends. Yet beneath the jokes lies pure joy, a celebration of long-awaited love. The leadership team watches, their teasing smiles radiating warmth. Arlias closes her eyes, silently thanking the boy who made this possible. The following day, a serene calm blankets the snow-covered mountains. Arlias tells Azuma that she and Gangrave have finally connected. She wishes to express her heartfelt gratitude for all his support. But for some reason, Azuma's response is a bit unexpected. He starts punching himself, a bizarre celebration for the happy couple. Arlias assumes this is his odd way of congratulating her. Shifting topics, she admits she's amazed by his extensive knowledge. Azuma explains that in his homeland, he's been learning these things since childhood. Arlias is astonished. This is merely basic education in Azuma's world. She recalls his lesson on kombu, pondering how invisible particles can impart flavor. He clarifies that the world consists of atoms and molecules, concepts she's never encountered. He even breaks down the science of fire, fuel, oxygen, and heat. She gazes at the world, realizing it's all constructed from these unseen elements. And she grasps that magic is simply the skill of manipulating those particles. In a moment of clarity, she finally sees the root of her slump. The solution to all her questions stood right before her all along. His understanding of science and chemistry is the closest to this world's truth. And while Azuma remains modest, his knowledge consistently surpasses her own. She gazes at Azuma, still curious about who this enigmatic boy truly is. Yet she quickly brushes aside the notion her uncertainties finally settled. He is both an ally and a supporter, and she pledges her full trust in him. The battalion advances, a line of soldiers against the endless snowy landscape. Gangrave shields his eyes from the blizzard, sensing this storm is a bad sign. Their foes are locals, seasoned fighters who thrive in this icy wasteland. But Arlia steps up, assuring Gangrave she will forge a path for them. She remembers Azuma's words, the universe is merely a collection of tiny particles. Armed with this insight, she strides out alone to confront the entire enemy force. If her theory holds true, this new approach should succeed. She shuts her eyes, concentrating on a singular, straightforward truth. Before her lies an army confident in their numbers and home advantage. Her magic now extends beyond her, forming a web of pure information. She senses the very particles that constitute the world around her. She recalls the basic science of fire, fuel, oxygen, and heat. The enemy soldiers watch, bewildered, as she begins to generate intense heat. Using her own magic as fuel, she conjures a vortex of raw energy. By adjusting the oxygen flow, she speeds up the reaction dramatically. The enemy can only watch in terror as a second sun ignites in the sky. Even her fellow mages are left speechless, witnessing power beyond their imagination. She feels the overwhelming heat, a sign of her newfound mastery. Yet she also conjures a barrier of air, protecting her own forces from the inferno. The extreme heat instantly melts the snow, transforming the battlefield into slush. The enemy soldiers are incinerated in their own armor. Their advantage is lost. With a mere gesture, she extinguishes the flames, her task complete. She turns to Gangrave, announcing that their home field advantage has been nullified. The captain can only grin, his pride in her evident. With the way cleared, Gangrave charges into the heart of the enemy formation. The ensuing battle was a total rout for their side. Arlia's magic had achieved a level of precision and power never witnessed before. The battlefield is strewn with the fallen, a testament to her newfound strength. Her fellow mages are astonished, questioning what kind of magic she just unleashed. They observe that their captain has reached an entirely different level now. Arlia simply nods, a contemplative expression on her face. A small, knowing smile appears on her lips as she ponders her response. She winks, claiming she learned the universe's truth from Tofu. And history would remember this time when mages were celebrated as heroes. Yet one woman rose above them all, a legend in her own right. She grasped the very essence of magic, a feat no one has matched since. She would be known as Arlias de Enju, the fabled Witch of Truth. She would ascend to become Queen Arlias de Enju, spouse of the first king, Gangrave. But her greatest legacy was sharing the truth she uncovered with the world. She established the National Magic Academy, becoming its inaugural director. It was she who laid the groundwork for the kingdom's elite royal mages. She was also renowned for her unmatched beauty, turning down countless suitors. Because the only man she ever loved was the one and only Gangrave. Her 3 disciples, known as the 3 Sages, would continue her legacy. Yet, no one ever succeeded in replicating her complete grasp of the truth. When questioned about its secrets, she left behind just a single clue, a dish, a meal crafted by a solitary cook, now a beloved winter staple throughout the kingdom. It was a simple dish, merely tofu simmered in a rich kombu broth. For the remainder of her days, it would be Arlias' cherished dish. With each mouthful, she would proclaim that this humble tofu contained the secrets of the cosmos. Following their triumph in the frigid north, the Gangrave mercenaries commenced their lengthy journey southward. However, as they progressed, whispers of unrest in the south reached them. Tag, the archer captain, glances at Izuma, concern etched on his face. Our boy returns the look, utterly baffled by the sudden worry. Yet Tag persists, highlighting how pale Izuma has become. Izuma confesses he feels extremely nauseous from the jarring, uncomfortable journey. A sudden harsh jolt from the wagon nearly sends him tumbling. He grips his mouth, the rough ride churning his stomach. Tag pleads with him not to vomit, but Izuma can only manage a weak, pained apology. He grumbles about the wagon's lack of modern suspension. It's a torture device on wheels. A knight with blonde hair suggests he should either adapt or ride a horse. But Izuma clarifies that the issue isn't about him getting used to horses, it's the opposite. For reasons unknown, every horse he's encountered has tried to attack him. The knight observes that even on the brink of collapse, Izuma remains oddly composed. A new voice concurs, asserting that's just the type of person he is. Lil appears, wearing a knowing, slightly playful grin. Izuma, still looking pale, questions why she isn't on a horse as well. She replies flatly that her feet don't reach the stirrups, a truly devastating flaw. Izuma observes that Lil has been acting oddly lately, engrossed in some new studies. He's noticed her arms and legs are now adorned with intricate tattoos. He understands they relate to Magus bells, but can't shake off his concern. Our boy can only blush, wondering why she'd cover her lovely skin like that. Suddenly, the world starts to tremble, and their vision blurs violently. Lil reaches out in alarm as the knight cries out for Izuma, asking what's wrong. The other soldiers rush in, worry etched on their faces as Azuma collapses. A soldier with braided hair watches, his expression grim as chaos unfolds. Azuma feels heavy, his head ablaze with fever as he pleads for them to halt the wagon. The company swiftly establishes a temporary camp to address the crisis. Azuma lies in a makeshift bed, completely out cold from a raging fever. The lengthy trek and abrupt climate change have finally taken their toll. Even in his illness, his first thought is to apologize for not cooking for everyone. A firm voice instructs him to stop fretting about food and focus on recovery. Gang Raven and Kaguya keep watch over him, their faces marked with deep concern. He's being treated in a field tent, feeling guilty for delaying the entire company. Kaguya begins her work, but her healing methods don't involve any magical chance. Instead, she employs a form of Eastern medicine which appears far more intense than mere spellcasting. It turns out the quiet shrine maiden is also a medical genius, a prodigy in her own right. Kaguya completes her treatment, explaining she's done all she can for the moment. She confirms it's a severe cold, but admits their medical supplies are insufficient. With a serious expression, she advises Azuma to take care of himself and rest. She and Gangrave exit the tent, granting the sick boy a moment of solitude. Yet Azuma can only chastise himself, feeling like a burden to his friends. Gangrave quietly apologizes, his voice heavy with regret. He blames himself, realizing he should have arranged for help and stocked up on medicine, but Azuma insists it's his own fault for neglecting his health. He even confesses that being relied upon by the company brings him joy. Yet Gangrave refuses to accept this, declaring it a failure on his part as a leader. Even now, Azuma's first thought is for the others, asking if they're eating properly. Gangrave grins, assuring him that he's the one they're all concerned about right now. Azuma can only redden, claiming the captain is overreacting. Yet Gangrave's face turns serious. This isn't an exaggeration. Their lack of medicine is a grave issue. Azuma vows he won't easily succumb, not here, not like this. He has a purpose that drives him, his promise to eventually return to Earth. The captain's expression softens, confessing he's had to restrain the entire crew from rushing to him. In this unfamiliar world, Azuma has discovered a family that genuinely cares for him. Our boy can only manage a faint, thankful smile, asking Gangrave to convey his gratitude. The captain leaves him to recuperate, a silent understanding shared between them. But as he lies in the still tent, a familiar determination starts to take shape. He realizes he can't just lie here, waiting for this sickness to fade. He glances at his kitchen supplies, understanding he'll need to prepare his own remedy. So despite his fever, Azuma forces himself upright, resolved to get to work. He collects the ingredients he purchased from a nearby village: eggs, honey, and sake. Using Lil's mage Conro, he starts to gently heat the sake in a pot of warm water. While it warms, he blends the egg and honey into a smooth mixture. He carefully tempers the eggs with the warm sake before straining the final mixture. The outcome is a traditional remedy from his world, tamagozaki or eggsaki. He takes a long sip, feeling the warmth spread through him, a chef healing himself with his craft. But there's an issue. His fever is so intense he can hardly taste anything. He drinks it anyway, hoping the nutrients will be sufficient for his recovery. As he lies in the quiet tent, his feverish thoughts wander back to his past. He remembers his mother, who always prepared special meals for him when he was unwell, and his father, who would bring him ginger porridge to accompany the tamagozaki. Even his friends would check in on him when he was feeling under the weather. But now, all of that is lost. Here, he has no friends, no family, no one to depend on. The weight of his solitude begins to settle in, a heavy burden on his mind. He fears that even if he makes it back home, centuries might have slipped by. A truly cruel twist. He doesn't even know if a path home exists or how he would ever discover it. In his feverish haze, he can only call out for the parents he left behind. He knows it's just the illness talking, a symptom of his condition. Yet he confesses to the empty tent that he longs to see them again. As night blankets the camp, Azuma finally drifts into a deep slumber. Later, he starts to stir, his hands slowly clenching and unclenching. He sits up, realizing he slept through the day and into the night. With a groan, he pushes himself to his feet, feeling a newfound strength returning. He stretches his arms, a relieved smile breaking across his face. The fever has lifted. He wonders if it was Kaguya's treatment or his own remedy that finally did the trick. But his recovery is interrupted by a much more pressing biological need. He rushes out of the tent, desperately searching for a place to go. A few moments later, he returns, feeling significantly better. The camp is silent, and he assumes everyone else is already asleep. But a sudden movement in the shadows catches his eye. He spots a familiar figure standing guard just outside his tent. It's Tag, the archer captain, equally surprised to see him. The archer greets him, confirming he was waiting right there. Azuma inquires what he's doing out here at such a late hour. He figures it's far too late for a simple get-well visit. Azuma blushes, realizing that Tag must have been keeping watch over him all night. He quickly realizes this level of worry is its own unique form of hell. He inquires of the archer captain why he's still awake at such an hour. Tag simply smiles, confessing he was somewhat anxious about Izuma's state. He wanted to see if our boy was feeling any better or managing to sleep. Azuma feels touched, recognizing the archer's concern is entirely sincere. He attempts to downplay it, claiming it was merely a common cold. Yet in this realm, a mere cold can spell doom with no real remedy. Azuma beams, apologizing for the hassle and asserting he's fully recovered. He argues it's unfair for the group to be delayed by a non-combatant like him. But Tag's face hardens as he informs Azuma that starting tomorrow, he can finally return to work. Azuma eagerly agrees. However, Azuma is puzzled when Tag clarifies he will be the one working. The archer captain is enraged, questioning if Azuma truly believes he can just resume his duties. He tells our boy to stop with the nonsense and return to bed at once. With a firm grip, he pushes Azuma back down onto the cot. He tucks in the blanket, treating the chef like a particularly obstinate child. Azuma can only apologize, feeling remorseful for causing so much trouble. But Tag clarifies he's not upset, just frustrated by Azuma's selflessness. He explains that they should be the ones apologizing for allowing him to shoulder the burden alone. Tag's expression softens, his eyes filled with a deep, quiet concern. Azuma can only gaze up, taken aback by the unexpected depth of their exchange. The archer poses a straightforward question. Doesn't he want to go home? Doesn't he long to see those he left behind, the ones who supported him? Azuma's hand grips the blanket, his knuckles pale with unexpressed emotion. He finally confesses, his voice soft yet resolute. Of course, he wants to return home. Tag's expression softens, as if he had known the answer all along. Yet Azuma's hope is tinged with despair, admitting he may never be able to go back. Tag recalls the truth. Azuma hails from a world beyond their reach. Azuma wonders if he can continue to mask his true feelings, pretending to be fine with being stuck here. Tag explains that unlike him, Azuma has a family waiting for him back home. He remembers how Gangrave and the others were all orphans who built this company together. Azuma feels a stab of guilt, realizing how thoughtless he must have sounded. But Tag interrupts, stating there's just one thing he needs to grasp. He smiles, explaining that while they lack parents, they've created their own family right here. Azuma feels flustered, sensing that his pity has been completely seen through. Tag's demeanor turns serious, acknowledging Azuma's family is far away. He admits he's never even considered what lies beyond the ocean. Azuma scolds himself, realizing it's too late to clarify he's from an entirely different world. Tag simply gazes at him, hoping that at least his body and mind can find some peace. Tag then asks if Azuma would be open to sharing about his family. He confesses he's never had one and wishes to understand what it's truly like. Azuma can only stare back, astonished by the archer's openness. Tag's expression is utterly serious, his curiosity genuine and deep. And so, witnessing that sincerity, Azuma begins to share his tale. He recounts the simple joy of dining with family, of being welcomed home. He reflects on his rebellious youth, pushing them away before finally feeling gratitude. He remembers the moment he truly grasped their worth when he was finally on his own. He admits that speaking of them only fortifies his determination to find a way back. But as he gazes out at the camp, he's reminded that a path home remains completely unattainable. Yet as he speaks, Azuma realizes he's beginning to think the exact opposite. He starts to ponder what this place and its people truly signify for him. He faced death on the battlefield, celebrating alongside those who made it. He enjoyed meals, drinks, and laughter, mourning losses while celebrating wins. Somewhere along the line, he realizes this life has become indispensable. The weight of that realization brings an unexpected tear to his eye. Tag is the first to catch on, quietly calling out his name in surprise. Azuma is taken aback, utterly confused by his own sudden feelings. He quickly tries to dismiss it, claiming it's nothing significant. Yet Tag's worried look reveals he sees right through the flimsy excuse. Tag tells him that someone as kind as him doesn't fit in this bloody world. But Azuma counters that it's not that simple. He wants to return home, but there's more. He explains that if he genuinely wished to leave, he would have done so by now. In that moment, he finally grasps why he has remained all this time. This place, these individuals, they've become an essential part of his existence. He feels thankful to be with them and has no plans to abandon them. With newfound determination, he requests Tag to allow him to stay and keep working. He bows his head, making a sincere, formal appeal to the archer captain. This isn't merely a temporary arrangement, it's a commitment. Tag smiles, saying that's a speech the whole company deserves to hear. Tag grins, reminding him he's always been one of them, and they rely on him. He then changes the subject, noting Azuma appears to have fully recovered. Azuma confirms it, bursting with energy, feeling better than ever. He immediately declares his intention to get back to work and prepare dinner. But Tag sheepishly admits he's already eaten, which is just perfect timing. Azuma asks if the archer would still consider dining with him. He explains this dish is special from his memories, one he wishes to share. The heartfelt request leaves the archer captain utterly speechless. Azuma reveals a unique kansum base he's been refining through trial and error. It's a complex mix of dried veggies and powdered spices, a taste of home. He lays out the ingredients for a classic pot-au-feu, vegetables, sausages, and his special consomme. He starts prepping, peeling, and quartering the potatoes with practiced skill. Next are the carrots, cut into uniform pieces for even cooking. He chops the onions and cabbage into large rustic wedges. He even scores the sausages, a small touch to ensure they soak up the broth's flavor. Everything goes into one pot, left to simmer gently over a low flame. The outcome is a steaming, aromatic petit-four, a simple yet comforting meal. He presents the completed dish to Tag, a warm offering after a long night. Tag closes his eyes, savoring the rich aroma of vegetables and savory broth. Azuma explains the soup's excellence comes from a perfect flavor balance. He clarifies that this simple, rustic dish is known as pot-au-feu. Tag recognizes the sausages, and Azuma assures him they're a perfect pairing. The archer captain then points out the potatoes, a familiar sight, but his expression darkens, admitting that while Azuma's cooking is fantastic, the company has consumed so many potatoes that they're starting to tire of them. Azuma simply smiles, promising that this time will be different. Tag's faith is restored, knowing our boy has never served a bad meal. He takes his first cautious bite, bracing for the verdict. He chews slowly, his face unreadable as he processes the taste. In an instant, his eyes widen, revealing pure, unfiltered shock. He proclaims that this isn't just food, it's a truly heartfelt meal. He observes that while the potatoes are fantastic, even the carrots are surprisingly soft. The comforting warmth of the flavor brings tears to the eyes of the hardened soldier. He compliments the soup's subtle fragrance and its unexpectedly rich, deep taste. He confesses he's no expert, but he recognizes quality food, and this is outstanding. Azuma samples it himself, his expression pensive and somewhat distant. He acknowledges that even now, he struggles to recreate the taste of home. He shares with Tag that this dish was a family favorite from his childhood. A wave of nostalgia washes over him, and he wishes to share that with his new family. He knows deep down that his wish to remain here is genuine. Azuma smiles, admitting that despite everything, he still feels a touch of loneliness. The revelation seems to completely surprise the archer captain. Before Azuma can elaborate, Tag interrupts him with unexpected fervor. He explains that they are all orphans, having never known their parents. Their only family is each other, bonded through the trials of war. He questions Azuma if he has forgotten that he is already part of that family. In their eyes, Azumashuri is one of them, completely accepted. Tag tells him that if he feels lonely, he should lean on them, his new family. Those simple, heartfelt words leave Azuma utterly moved. With tears of gratitude, he finally embraces his role in this unfamiliar home. Tag vows to always protect Azuma, as he has given them a place to return. He knows that as long as they can look forward to his cooking, they'll find the will to endure. Tag admits this is the kind of warm, nurturing meal he envisions a parent would prepare. He insists that they should be the ones expressing gratitude for all Azuma has done. That night, Azuma discovered something he never anticipated, a family. The following morning, Azuma is back on his feet, his recovery deemed miraculous by the camp. Lil's team welcomes him with relief, confessing they were extremely worried about him. But their concern quickly shifts to who will prepare hamburger steaks for their captain. A valid point. Azuma can only grin, realizing this chaotic place genuinely feels like home. In that moment, he finally makes his choice, his determination solidifying like steel. He had been searching for a reason to stay, but the answer was already within him. He silently bids farewell to his parents, accepting he may never return. Because here, with his new family, he has at last discovered a new purpose. A fierce resolve fills him. He will give everything he has to this world. He sends a message to his past life, reassuring them he's happy and they should be too. He quietly expresses heartfelt thanks to Tag for guiding him. Azuma remembers how Tag's laid-back demeanor always kept the atmosphere light. Yet, he also recalls the man who listened to his troubles with unwavering seriousness. Since that night, Tag has been training with a newfound ferocity. Azuma now realizes that Tag has always been a kind and incredibly strong individual. One day, a young archer approaches his captain with a question. He seeks advice on his technique, hoping for some guidance. But Tag simply smiles sheepishly, admitting he's not really suited for teaching. He quickly hands off the responsibility to his second-in-command, much to the man's surprise. With a cheerful wave, the archer captain strolls away. Tag acknowledges to himself that he's never excelled at making his own choices. When Gangrave established the company, his only concern was securing his next meal. Even in combat, he leaves the actual leadership to his vice-captain. His strategy has always been straightforward: shoot the enemy in front and repeat. He's always gone with the flow, never taking the initiative. He's consistently chosen the path of least resistance. It's just how he lives. Meet Tag, the laid-back leader of the archer unit. He only took up archery because Gangrave instructed him to, just a simple command he obeyed. Fortunately, he had a knack for it, effortlessly becoming a vital member of the team. Yet, beneath his carefree demeanor lies a haunting regret, a memory that torments him. In a flashback, a younger Arlias is frantic, questioning why Gangrave and the cavalry are absent. She berates herself for not being there, while a younger Tag watches, his expression somber. He recalls a vicious confrontation where thugs mocked them after Gangrave had to pull back. In that crucial moment, Tag stood paralyzed, gripped by fear. The cavalry's arrival rescued them, but it couldn't erase the stain of his failure. He remembers the chaos as a captain fell, an arrow striking his chest. The memory shatters his calm, a moment of sheer, paralyzing dread. It marked the first time their unit had truly faced defeat. Gangrave was gravely injured, leading his troops without his strongest captains. In that moment of desperation, Tag fled, abandoning his captain. He watched as Kaguya fought to save Gangrave's life. The shame of his cowardice became a wound that would never fully heal. Yet even then Gangrave smiled, thankful to have survived. Even now, Tag's thoughts occasionally drift back to that fateful day. He believes that had he fought, none of this would have unfolded. In that moment of shame, Tag made a silent, solemn promise. He vowed to protect this family, all of them, with everything he could muster. But his laid-back nature was a tough habit to shake. For a long time, that vow remained completely unfulfilled. He maintained his cheerful facade, concealing the weight of his promise. Then Gangrave introduced an unexpected new face to their group, a young man named Azuma Shuri, who seemed more like a lost child than a soldier. Yet, this kid's cooking was extraordinary, a taste of a world they had never experienced. Thanks to him, mealtimes transformed into moments of pure, uncomplicated joy. After battles, savoring Azuma's meals made them genuinely grateful to be alive. Azuma's cooking became the heart of the unit, a source of simple happiness. But Tag admits a part of him felt a twinge of frustration. He felt responsible for protecting this family, yet it was Azuma who truly supported them. But he couldn't stay upset. The food was just too good to argue about. And it wasn't just him. Lil, Kuga, and Arlias were all inspired to reach new heights. Kuga's blade found renewed purpose, a newfound strength. Arlias' magic ascended to levels beyond comprehension. Even the other captains began to view Azuma as an indispensable ally, but just as he settled into his role, the one supporting everyone else finally collapsed. The entire unit comes to a standstill. Panic subsides as they rush to Azuma's side. Kaguya quickly takes command, instructing Gangrave to stop the unit's advance. Soldiers carry Azuma away on a stretcher, calling for a clear path. Tag and the others can only watch, their faces marked by shock. Azuma is barely conscious, moaning under the grip of a fierce fever. The sight leaves Tag utterly stunned, the gravity of the situation sinking in. Even now, Azuma can only manage a weak, pained apology for the trouble. Tag's eyes widen, a silent storm of guilt and worry brewing inside him. He admits he's slow to catch on, but he's finally starting to grasp the situation. He realizes they've been placing the entire burden of cooking on Azuma. It's not that Azuma is weak, he's just been silently enduring it all. He understands now that Azuma had been concealing his exhaustion all along. Yet the kid's instinct remains to say sorry despite everything. He never voiced a complaint, simply tackling every assignment handed to him. Tag realizes they were all indulged by his remarkable generosity. As he watches him being taken away, a new determination solidifies in Tag's gaze. Later, Kaguya verifies the diagnosis. It's a serious cold. She explains that for the impoverished, even a mild cold can be fatal. From the shadows, Tag observes, his worry keeping him nearby. Without adequate medicine, the sickness can swiftly become lethal. This world's healthcare motto seems to be, "Don't get sick." He remembers the old adage, "A cold is what takes the lives of the poor." Gang Rave exits the tent, his expression somber, finding Tag waiting. The archer inquires about Azuma, and Gang Rave reassures him that he's stable for the moment. Yet the captain's irritation is evident. With proper medicine, this wouldn't be a problem. He holds himself accountable, admitting he overlooked Azuma's hard work and failed to support him. He feels he has repaid the boy's kindness with nothing but struggle. Gang Rave walks away, leaving Tag burdened by their shared failure. Tag acknowledges he noticed Azuma's illness, but found the thought of helping too daunting. He stands guard, hearing Azuma's feverish calls for the family he left behind. Peeking inside, he sees the boy reaching out in his sleep, lost in a dream of home. In that moment, Tag finally grasps the depth of Azuma's isolation. Tag realizes Azuma has been struggling to survive just to reunite with his family. He never voiced his loneliness, concealing the true burden of his anxiety. He wonders if any of them genuinely attempted to comprehend Azuma's suffering. They were oblivious to his life, his friends, or the world he had left behind. Tag admits they never even took the time to ask. He has always just gone along with things, never taking the initiative. But now, with Azuma incapacitated, one of his men offers him a plate of food. The other captains, Kuga and Orthros, are also receiving their meals. The soldier presents the meal with a bright smile, a poor substitute for Azuma's cooking. Tag takes a bite, and his expression says it all. This is undeniably awful. Kuga forces down a mouthful, admitting it's not entirely inedible, but... He grimaces, clarifying that his own squad prepared this culinary disaster. The food resembles a gray, joyless heap of regret. Tag's pained expression tells a different tale, one of sheer agony. Kuga lets out an exasperated sigh, clearly sharing in the discomfort. He points at Tag, reminding him he's not the only one suffering. The swordsman declares they're all enduring this meal together. He confesses he wanted to assist Azuma, but couldn't bring himself to do it. The master swordsman admits he has absolutely no skill in the kitchen, but Tag realizes that's no justification for their inaction. Kuga acknowledges it wasn't just him. None of them stepped up when it counted. Tag is taken aback, realizing they can't simply wallow in self-pity. Kuga decides on a new plan, caring for Azuma and keeping watch. He'll apologize for his own uselessness once Azuma is well enough to hear it. With renewed determination, he leans back, declaring that's exactly what he'll do. Even the quiet Orthros seems to be pondering the swordsman's words. Tag offers a warm smile, finally grasping his comrade's perspective. He knows Kuga is right. They were all equally powerless in this situation. Kuga admits they're all reflecting on their own shortcomings, himself included. But a new idea pierces through the gloom, a pivotal moment for the captains. Kuga tells Tag that now is the time for Azuma to confront his own condition. He can't grasp why the kid pushes himself so relentlessly, but it's time for a break. This moment offers Azuma a chance to truly rest and regain his strength. TAG absorbs the simple notion of allowing Azuma to take a pause. As darkness descends, a serene quiet envelops the mercenary camp. Tag shivers against the chill, realizing that even in the south, nights are brutal. He decides to check on Azuma, just to ensure he's okay. But as he nears the tent, a sudden wave of panic hits him. He flings the flap open, shouting an alarm. Azuma is missing. The archer captain can only stare in shock, questioning what might have occurred. He panics, fearing Azuma wandered off alone to avoid being a burden. Yet a familiar voice calls out to him, halting him in his tracks. He turns to see Azuma standing there, looking perfectly fine. The archer can only gaze, relieved to find the kid safe and sound. Azuma assures him he's feeling much better, though puzzled by the concern. Tag quickly tries to act nonchalant, claiming he was just heading to the restroom, a believable excuse. He smiles, genuinely relieved that Azuma appears to have fully recovered, but Azuma's next words are about to completely shatter that calm moment. With a bright grin, he announces he's well enough to move around again, and he cheerfully declares he's ready to get back to work tomorrow, much to Tag's dismay. Tag erupts, questioning if Azuma really thinks he came all this way just to hear that. Azuma simply smiles, promising to be more cautious and avoid causing trouble in the future. But Tag is furious, feeling like he's being treated as an untrustworthy child. With a firm push, he shoves Azuma back down onto the cot. The archer captain watches, his frustration finally boiling over. He points out that the tent is filled with cooking supplies, a constant reminder to work. He leans in, apologizing for how they all failed to support him. And so, he decides to pose the question that's been on everyone's mind. He looks Azuma in the eye, asking if he ever wishes to return home. He needed to hear the truth, the one thing our boy couldn't fake. Azuma meets his gaze, confirming he desperately longs to go home. But his hope is instantly crushed by the harsh reality. He may never return. Tag is taken aback, repeating the words as if they don't register. The archer turns away, admitting he feels ashamed of his own ignorance. All he knows is that Azuma hails from a distant land across the ocean. The narrative then shifts to the ancient creation myth of this world. A deity formed the continent, filling it with humans and creatures. But the remaining chaos was sealed far beyond the continent's borders, and the seas were teeming with massive, ferocious beasts to guard the land. This is the legend of their continent, a tale most only half believe. Yet this legend is regarded merely as a story, since no one has ever glimpsed what lies beyond the horizon. Shuri realizes this is why he admitted he might never come back. The outer sea is a vast, unknown expanse. Countless adventurers have attempted to cross it, but none have returned, leaving Shuri with no path home. The chef looks down, his guilt from his earlier outburst weighing heavily on him. Tag notices the change, asking why Shuri suddenly appears so remorseful. Shuri is flustered, surprised that the warrior can read his mood so easily. Tag explains that although he has no parents, he has always viewed the entire company as his family. He winks, telling the chef to save the pity since he already knows Shuri is different. The warrior admits he's feeling a bit embarrassed and wants to change the topic. But he then inquires if Shuri would be open to sharing stories about his own family once he's healed. Tag confesses he's always been curious about what having parents is truly like. Thus, Azuma starts to recount his most cherished family memories. As he listens, an unfamiliar wave of emotion begins to rise within him. He expresses his profound wish to reunite with them, to return home. The archer captain is left utterly speechless by the heartfelt tale. Yet, as he talks, Azuma is taken aback by his own tears, prompting Tag to call his name. He hastily tries to dismiss it, claiming it's nothing significant. However, Tag feels remorse, realizing how cruel it was to bring up such a painful subject. Azuma quickly clarifies that his tears aren't due to that. He confesses that while he longs to go home, there's something deeper at play. With a tearful grin, he shares that he's genuinely happy to have found this companionship. He understands the risks of being a non-combatant, yet he wishes to remain. Tag is touched by his generosity, knowing Lil will be thrilled about the hamburger steaks. With his mind made up, Azuma declares he will prepare dinner. He then turns to Tag, inviting the archer to join him for the meal. This invitation is more than just a meal. It's a glimpse into Azuma's past. He serves up the completed dish, a humble steaming pot-au-feu. Tag has tasted many of Azuma's creations, but this one feels unique. He observes how even the potatoes have soaked up the rich, savory broth. He proclaims that for him, this is the finest dish he has ever experienced. With each bite, he discovers a new layer of flavor unfolding. The carrots and onions are so soft, they practically dissolve on his tongue. What remains is the pure essence of the vegetables and the deep umami of the soup. All the flavors meld together, creating something truly remarkable. He admits he's no culinary expert, a fact that surprises no one. Yet he recognizes this dish is crafted from immense effort and dedication. Azuma smiles, revealing he feels lonely because this was his family's recipe. In that moment, Tag finally grasps Azuma's genuine emotions. He realizes that if that's the case, there's only one course of action. With renewed determination, he asserts it's their turn to voice what needs to be said. Tag explains they've never known their parents, only the faces of their comrades. He tells Azuma that while he can't depend on his own family, he can always count on them. He remembers how Azuma always seemed so far away, like a different world. But in his solitude, he was just like them. They are a family forged through their own strength and trust, and in their eyes, there's no longer any reason to reject Azuma. Tag tells him that on that night, he gained a best friend as irreplaceable as any. The following morning, the camp erupts in cheers as Azuma returns. Lil's subordinates celebrate with an exuberant display of affection. Tag can only smile, watching his new friend finally find his place. Kuga and Orthrus observe, admitting they were worried sick about the kid. They believe his swift recovery is thanks to Kaguya's care and his own cooking. Azuma utilized all his knowledge to heal, not wanting to burden his new family. The soldiers agree that his own cooking is what built his resilient physique. But witnessing Azuma's strength, Tag decides it's time for him to rise as well. He heads to the training grounds, releasing an arrow with newfound intensity. The arrow strikes the target and embeds itself into a solid stone slab behind. He even starts instructing his men, correcting a young archer's flawed technique. His vice captain can only watch, astonished by this sudden shift in leadership. With a new fire in his eyes, Tag showcases the true might of his bow. The arrow soars with incredible speed, a blur of wood and feather. His crew can only stand in amazement, acknowledging their captain's skills are on a whole different plane. It hits the target like a cannonball, splintering the wood. The projectile blasts through, embedding itself deep within a sturdy tree. Tag shuts his eyes, a calm assurance washing over him. He faces his men, declaring a harsh new training program for everyone. They're taken aback by his sudden intensity, yet they're eager to follow. His second-in-command questions what has triggered this abrupt shift in his approach. Tag concedes that indeed, things will be different moving forward. Now he has a best friend he's vowed to protect. He confesses he's always been a passenger in life, but now he's discovered his own dream. He aims to traverse the entire continent, eager to see and experience all it offers. His ultimate goal is to brave the perilous outer seas to locate Azuma's homeland. He promises to someday meet Azuma's parents and assure them their son is thriving. Years later, after the kingdom unified, a new initiative was introduced. It was a colossal endeavor to create a comprehensive map of the continent. Prior to this, maps were disjointed and incomplete, lacking a single authority to chart the land. For this ambitious public works project, one hero stepped up to take the lead. That hero was Tag Valence, the inaugural adventurer and captain of the Royal Guard. He eagerly accepted the task, entrusting his position to his successor to pursue his own dream. He journeyed across the continent, leaving no area unexplored in his quest. His travels resulted in two significant works, the first being a complete map of the continent. The second was a travelogue chronicling the peculiar sights, traditions, and cuisines of the region. These two volumes became priceless treasures, disseminating knowledge throughout the kingdom. Yet after finishing his life's work, Tag Valence simply disappeared. He left no trace in the royal palace, a phantom who had never truly existed. But decades later, just as mysteriously as he vanished, he returned. He had been navigating the outer seas, a feat deemed impossible in that time. And he returned with a new book, a record of the worlds beyond their own. After his adventures, he settled into a peaceful life with his family, his legend fulfilled. He would often say that his grand journey was sparked by a simple bowl of soup. It was his thirst for the unknown that compelled him to abandon everything.